In the famine-stricken 1970s, I barely kept my younger siblings alive. Then I discovered that the back door of our home could lead to a future world. I bravely stuck half a leg in and saw people inside all wearing bright, clean clothes, their skin as smooth as milk. Among them, a young woman was giving weight loss recipes. I cursed under my breath, freaking crazy. We can't even get enough to eat. And she's on a diet with food that good. I was about to step deeper into the door to look, brother, but a shout beside me made me stop. I turned and saw my younger brother Wu Xiaoyuan standing behind me. Brother, I'm hungry. I smiled and pulled out a few pieces of dried sweet potatoes from the bag. Be good, Xiaoyuan. Eat some dried sweet potatoes first. Xiaoyuan took a bite. Dejected, he said, brother, if only we still had mom. I gave a bitter smile. I never knew who my mother was. Right after I was weaned, grandma chased her away. After dad died, grandma even tried to kick me and my brother out. She only wanted to keep my younger sister Nuan Bao to sell for money. In anger, I moved out with my siblings. Just then, Nuan Bao started crying from outside the house. I hurried back inside with Xiaoyuan. Found Nuan Bao, who I'd just washed clean, now covered in mud like a little loach. Don't cry, Nuan Bao, don't cry. I picked her up, heating water for a bath, while starting a fire to cook porridge. After a bustle of activity, seeing my siblings clean and quiet, I finally felt a bit of satisfaction. Xiaoyuan finished the last spoonful of porridge. His heart trembled. Hungry. You haven't had a single bite, have you? Don't you remember? I ate dried sweet potatoes earlier. I'm full. I picked up a basket, gave my brother a few instructions, and headed up the mountain alone. But on the nearby slopes, the wild greens had all been dug up by villagers. I got bold and went deeper into the forest. The villagers usually didn't dare come here. Old folks even said there was a black bear in the mountains that eats children. But I had to survive, so I didn't care. Soon I filled the basket with wild greens. Just as I was packing up to head home, I turned my head and spotted a brooding wild hen clucking. I carefully pulled out my flashlight. But this hen had sharp hearing too. It quickly sensed something wrong. Its little head kept twisting left and right, checking the surroundings. I approached steadily, then aimed the flashlight straight at the hen. The poor hen, blinded by the sudden flash, couldn't open its eyes. Frozen in the nest, I lunged and grabbed it by the neck. The hen flapped its wings twice, then stopped struggling. There were a full 20 eggs in the nest, still warm to the touch. I carefully picked them all into the basket. Satisfied, I carried the heavy load home. Found Nuan Bao asleep in Xiaoyuan's arms, the two little ones smacking their lips in their sleep. Thinking about surprising them tomorrow, I carried the basket to the backyard to build a chicken coop. But somehow the back door had opened. A blinding white light shone through. Next thing I knew, I was floating in a hazy void. Information about the two doors came rushing into my mind. So this door could lead straight to 2024. I was thrilled. This meant I could go to the future and do some business. Those people all looked rich. Otherwise, how could everyone have skin as white as milk? Then I hesitated. What if I go and can't come back? What would happen to Xiaoyuan and Nuan Bao at home? But I didn't get a second to think. Towering buildings, noisy crowds. On both sides of the bustling street, rows of shops lined up. The world before me left me stunned. I had truly come to the future. At the same time, a countdown started in my head. 59 minutes, 59 seconds. Standing in the crowd, I felt out of place. At first I felt uneasy, but I soon noticed. People here dressed however they pleased. A middle-aged man was singing into a small brick. Someone else dressed like the Monkey King was selling meat skewers. Even buying and selling openly was allowed. No one worried about Hong Xiubiao showing up all of a sudden. Just then, a woman carrying a transparent plastic bag over her coat walked toward me. Young man, are these wild celery from a greenhouse or wild-picked? What's a greenhouse? I had no idea. I smiled earnestly. I picked them myself in the mountains. The auntie's eyes lit up. She saw the wild green juice on my nails and hands, and believed me. So she asked cheerfully how much. I'd never done any buying or selling before. I thought, selling them for 2 fin a bundle shouldn't be too expensive. So I held up 2 fingers. A bit steep. How about 3 bundles for 50? My head spun. This auntie must be joking. But seeing my expression, she felt a little guilty. She thought to herself, these days, even if you go to the countryside, it's hard to find real wild greens. So she pointed at my little stall and said, young man, auntie won't haggle anymore. I'll take all your wild greens. But auntie, can you eat that much wild greens at home? Don't worry, if I can't finish, I'll freeze them. She said it so casually. Puzzled, I agreed. The moment I calculated the price, I was thrilled. I sold the greens for 200 yuan. Even if I did nothing else, that would be enough for Xiaoyuan and Nuan Bao to eat well for years. The auntie then looked at the wild rabbit on my stall, and the wild hen and eggs. Young man, are these game meats for sale too? How much? Auntie will buy them. That question stumped me again. Auntie, they're all good stuff. You decide the price. She pulled out 100 yuan notes. That's 1,000. Minus 200 for the greens. That's 800. Buying all this from you. Neither of us loses. Staring at the red bills, I was dumbfounded. This must be the money from the future. No use taking it back home. So I thought of a compromise. Auntie, look, could you trade me for 10 caddies of rice instead? But with this money you can buy hundreds of caddies. I'm a mountain person. First time in the city. I don't understand these things. I only know rice. The auntie didn't think much of it. Told me to load the stuff into her car. Seeing the car parked nearby, I revised my estimate of her wealth. She got a pen and paper from the car and left me a phone number and address. So her name was Zhang Xinmei. After waving goodbye to Zhang Xinmei, I pocketed the 1,000 yuan and decided to buy some grain at a 2024 supply cooperative. I made quite a few embarrassing mistakes while asking around. Found out they call it a supermarket now. Through the supermarket's big glass, I saw shelves packed with all kinds of goods. I was delighted, but the countdown in my head warned me. If I didn't return to my own world within the allotted time, I'd be trapped here forever. Taking this era's money back would be worthless paper. I needed to change all the money into grain fast, but I was too impatient. Didn't notice the supermarket's automatic door, and banged right into it. My head buzzed from the impact, drawing laughter from the people around. I didn't care, and walked straight in, but one awkward moment after another froze me in place, because I saw a moving staircase, and a transparent little box. When the door closed, it whooshed up, and whooshed back down. My strange behavior caught the attention of the supermarket manager, Lin Li Wei. He walked up with a smile, and said, "Sir, may I help you with something? Comrade, I'd like to buy some rice." Lin Li Wei was amused by my words, and wanted to laugh, but out of professional ethics, he didn't show it. "Sir, you're buying rice? I can take you over there." Then Lin Li Wei was very patient along the way, introducing the uses and methods for various items. It really opened my eyes. Here, you don't need ration tickets to buy things. You can take whatever you want. Just put the items you want into the shopping cart. Some people didn't even pay cash. They just showed a small square thing, and they let you take the goods. I followed Lin Li Wei to the grains and oils section. I bought a bag of rice and 2 jugs of oil. All were clearly priced. Though the prices were ridiculously high, they weren't as outrageous as that eyebrow pencil on the shelf. A little brush like that actually costs dozens of yuan. Seeing old men and old women lined up one after another in a long queue to buy eggs, I sighed to myself. So it's not just my time that had supply-demand tension. The future world is the same. My own time was running out, which forced me to give up the idea of buying eggs. Lin Li Wei seemed to notice my regret. "These are the special offer items from our supermarket. You don't need to queue to buy regular priced eggs." "That's really great." I soon saw the regular priced eggs on the shelf. I picked a whole basket full. Lin Li Wei was a bit stunned. She had never seen anyone buy so many eggs. Soon I arrived at the checkout. 1 bag of rice, 2 jugs of oil, plus eggs. I spent a total of 360 yuan. Though I still had 640 in hand, it still hurt. These exaggerated prices in the future world. I solemnly thanked Lin Li Wei. "Thank you, comrade." Hearing this, Lin Li Wei had been called comrade by me all the way. Finally, she couldn't hold it in anymore. "Sorry, sir. You can call me Manager Lin or Sister Lin. Calling me that makes it feel like we're from 2 different eras. Then don't call me sir either. My name is Daqing." The expression on my face was sincere. Lin Li Wei watched my retreating figure, and was lost in thought for a moment. After leaving the supermarket, I rushed non-stop to the steamed bun shop. At that time, Zhang Haohao had just finished his day's work, and was about to close up his stall. He packed the remaining buns from the drawer into 2 carry bags. At that moment, I walked over and asked, "Little comrade, how many buns are left?" "Only these. 1 bag has 10. 15 total. That's still good. My little brother and sister haven't had buns for almost a year." Zhang Haohao was somewhat surprised. What kind of family couldn't afford buns these days? "There's 1 more bag. If your siblings like them, take them all. My brother and sister will be so happy to eat buns." Saying that, I stuffed 2 20-yuan bills into his hand. "But I really don't have time left." As I told Zhang Haohao, "Keep the change." "No way, big brother. That's 10 yuan too much." I waved my hand as I ran, saying, "It's not too much. Next time I'll come buy your buns again." I rushed panicked towards the emergency exit. And then, in the last second of the countdown, I tumbled out of the backyard gate of the 1970s. I sat on the ground, excited. The rice and oil before my eyes were real, yet I still felt like what I had just experienced was a dream. At that moment, I heard Xiaoyuan and Yuan Bao's cries. I hurriedly carried the stuff and ran back inside. "Brother, where did you go? Why are you back so late?" The moment they saw me, Xiaoyuan's face was already wet with tears. Yuan Bao also, in her baby voice. "Brother didn't come back." Yuan Bao was so scared. Yuan Bao missed brother. I put down the things. I pulled my brother and sister close with 1 arm each. "Brother went to a wonderful place today. I brought back lots and lots of delicious food." Saying that, I took out the buns. Xiaoyuan's eyes immediately lit up. Big meat buns. The buns were still warm. The 2 children were starving. They grabbed them and started eating. I was afraid they'd choke, so I went to the kitchen with a smile, and made a pot of egg drop soup with glistening oil. I brought it to the siblings. "Eat it with the soup." Xiaoyuan, while swallowing, didn't want to seem too greedy, but as soon as he smelled the egg fragrance, he couldn't care about the heat. He gulped it all down noisily. Seeing this scene made me feel terrible. "Eat slowly. From now on, brother will make sure you have a good life." Xiaoyuan nodded vigorously. I hadn't eaten all day and was also starving. I ate 4 big buns in one go. So delicious, makes you want more. But I restrained myself. I knew I couldn't eat anymore. I still didn't understand that door. What if in the future I can't go to the future anymore? My siblings and I still have to live. At that moment, Xiaoyuan stared at me with bright eyes, with a silly grin on his face. "Brother, where did you get all these good things?" I patted Xiaoyuan's head. My expression turned very serious. "It's a connection I found outside. We just need to fill our own stomachs. Don't tell this secret to anyone." Xiaoyuan's expression also became serious. "Brother, don't worry. I won't say a word to anyone outside." Seeing Xiaoyuan like this, I smiled knowingly. I didn't sleep much that night. I was pondering whether to take the supplies I brought back from the future to the black market and sell them for money. These things are too conspicuous, and sending Xiaoyuan and Yuan Bao to school also costs money. But when I got up early the next morning, my mind changed again. Keep everything for ourselves to eat first. Xiaoyuan, Yuan Bao. Health is the most important. Seeing the words, "no need to wash" on the rice bag, I sighed with emotion. Future things are really good. Not a bit of chaff or powder. Just add water and put it in the pot. Soon the aroma of rice porridge wafted out. At that moment, Aunt Neo from the west courtyard was shouting in the yard. Who is cooking rice so generously? The whole yard can smell the food. I was so scared I shrank my neck. I quickly and quietly closed the windows and doors. Meanwhile, in the east courtyard, Bai Yulan smelled the faint aroma in the air. She could no longer sit still. No, I have to go over and see. Last night, she seemed to have smelled egg flour and bun fragrance. Sitting down, Wu Laogui calmly called her back. Don't start yelling and making a fuss early in the morning. What did we say when we separated households? Live, your own quiet life. What about separating households? I am his grandmother. Even if we separated, he still has to respect me. Don't dwell on nonsense all day. Why didn't you acknowledge this grandson before? If you want to acknowledge him, wait until they settle into their house before you cause trouble. Actually, Wu Laogui had even more thoughts than Bai Yulan. The house my brother and sister and I live in now was allocated by the production brigade. Once they're settled, he would, in the name of Xia Yuan and Muan Bao being his biological grandchildren, fight for the house. Hearing this, Bai Yulan was still indignant. She fished out 1 yuan from the cabinet. She called over her eldest daughter-in-law, who was soothing a child. Feng Pingzi, take this and buy 50 cents worth of meat for Jinbao. We'll cook meat today and make them envious. As for me, rice porridge, big buns, and boiled eggs were the breakfast this morning. Wu Xiaoyuan, while eating, felt sorry for his brother. Brother, why did you make the porridge so thick? What if we can't eat next meal? I peeled another egg and stuffed it into Xiaoyuan's hand. Eat it. What's in your belly is yours. Why are you so talkative? Then he picked up the rice grains Muan Bao had dropped and put them in his mouth. He drank the last sip of porridge from the bowl. He told Xiaoyuan repeatedly not to answer the door if someone came. Only then did he lock the door and go to work. Just then, Feng Pingzi happened to walk by my door, a basket on her arm. How can you not even greet your elder? I looked up and saw the meat in her basket. I reached out to take it. Auntie, is this for me? Then I won't stand on ceremony. What are you thinking? You think you deserve meat? I remembered the conversation between my father-in-law and mother-in-law that morning. Feng Pingzi rolled her eyes, grinned, and came over to me again. Daqing, tell your auntie the truth. What good food did you make for your little siblings this morning? Hiding it from your auntie. This auntie of mine was greedy, lazy, and sly, and hated it most when others ate well. I grinned. I made meat. You? I think you're dreaming of meat so much you've gone crazy. I ignored her spittle. Soon I arrived at the work team. Over 40 strong men from the village had already started digging. 6 educated youths had come in total, 4 men and 2 women. Around them, including Uncle Wu Da, were a bunch of bootlickers. Old Wu Gui was furious. With so many people around, he couldn't say it outright. Wu Daqing was the pillar of the old Wu family, so he had to uphold his image. When he saw me coming with my pickaxe, he took out all his anger on me. Why aren't you at home watching the kids? What are you making a fuss about here? I stared straight at old Wu Gui, narrowing my eyes. So this was the grandfather of Xiaoyuan and Muan Bao. I'm here to earn work points. At home, Xiaoyuan and Muan Bao are crying from hunger. I waited for old Wu Gui to lose his temper, but instead he comforted me. Daqing, if you're hungry, take your siblings home. As long as your grandfather is here, I won't let the 3 of you go hungry. I felt awkward. Something's fishy when things are too good. Old Wu Gui had never been this nice to me before. Just then, team leader Wu Gang patted me on the shoulder reassuringly. Just do your work. Don't think about things you shouldn't. I stopped complaining. I picked up my shovel and went to work. Wu Daqing was fawning over the female educated youths. Yao Yuling, this is my second uncle's ex-wife. She had a child with another man. A typical backward element. Just stay away from him. Yao Yuling glanced at Wu Daqing with disdain, but her gaze stayed on me. The corner of her mouth curled up involuntarily. But come to think of it, your brother does do manual labor pretty well. A few educated youths laughed too. Yao Yuling, you're not eyeing him, are you? That guy's not bad looking either. Only one short-haired female educated youth didn't join in. The teasing. The big black-framed glasses on her nose covered almost half her face. Yao Yuling glared at them. Just do your own work. All 4 of you together can't match one backward element. With that, Yao Yuling pushed Wu Daqing aside and sidled up to me. Hello, fellow villager. Let's get to know each other. I'm Yao Yuling from the educated youth point. What's your name? We looked at each other. I recognized her. This was the female educated youth Wu Daqing had been buttering up. I shook my head at that. The villagers had already dug out the rough shape of a well. Without hesitation, I jumped in. A shovel of dust flew into Yao Yuling's mouth. Yao Yuling cried out. You're too much. I'm talking to you as a favor. Who do you think you are? I kept digging, head down, not paying her words any mind. Then Wu Daqing hurried over, grinning apologetically. Yuling, don't get mad at him. Wait till we get back. I'll deal with him. We kept busy until past noon. The brigade's communal meal. Cornmeal buns with potato stew and tofu. I felt satisfied eating it. The communal meal had no oil or meat, but I couldn't figure out why it smelled so good. I was hesitating whether to take some back for Xiaoyuan and Muan Bao when I saw Wu Gang coming over with 2 lunchboxes. Uncle, you're too kind. Wu Gang took out a yuan coin from his pocket. Go to the supply point on your way back and buy some meat for Xiaoyuan and Muan Bao. I didn't borrow the money. Don't worry, uncle. I have my own ways to get meat for Xiaoyuan and Muan Bao. A kid like you, what ways can you have? I leaned close to Wu Gang. Yesterday, I went up the mountain and caught a wild chicken and a rabbit. I'll take them to town and sell them. Really? Wu Gang finally smiled. I didn't know you'd gotten so capable. How come you suddenly got so talented? I looked smug. It's all because uncle taught me so well. Huh. Don't try that bootlicking with me. My heart was full of joy. I was about to head home with the lunchbox when a male educated youth suddenly came up to me. Wu Daqing, someone asked me to pass you a message. He wants you to go to the grove. I was confused. I never had any contact with the educated youths, but this group liked to pick fights, and they liked to play dirty. They also worshipped Yao Yuling like a goddess. Thinking that, I scanned the whole canteen. Sure enough, Yao Yuling and all the male educated youths were gone. I smiled helplessly. I shook the chopsticks in my hand, effortlessly snapped them in half, and stuffed them into the male educated youth's hand. Please pass along a message for me too. If anyone wants trouble, they can come find me themselves. But his forced smile was uglier than crying. Fellow villager, we were just joking with you. We're all good comrades. I carried the food back home. Xiao Yuan and Nguyen Bao were standing in the yard, waiting eagerly. When they saw me back, they reached out their little hands for me to hold. After feeding the two little ones, I started thinking about what else I could catch to take to the future in exchange for some money. I wiped the sweat off my forehead. My body was covered in dirt from work. I was afraid going to the future looking like this would turn people off. So I went to the river to wash up. Because of the heat, the water flow wasn't strong. I had sharp eyes. I spotted a few crayfish crawling into the crevices between rocks. Why did I forget about these good things? The villagers didn't eat these. If they caught them, they'd chop them up and feed them to the chickens. Yesterday, in the future world, I saw people loved eating these. My heart immediately burst with joy. Another way to make money. Soon I had picked up 30 or 40 of them. But that was far from enough for the future market. I also caught a few small fish from the water, and a river crab that got in my way. River crabs were even less popular in the village than crayfish. Come spring and summer, the river was overrun with them. In no time, I easily caught a bucket full. I had just set the bucket on the bank when I unexpectedly found an unknown creature on the shore, a soft-shell turtle. In the past, if I found one, I'd boil it in a pot to nourish Xiao Yuan and Nguyen Bao's bodies. But the situation was different now. I took out a rope and tied the turtle's hind legs, hanging it upside down. It was a good 3 or 4 gene. This thing, would city people in the future world like it too? I wondered. Just then, a female voice suddenly came from the woods. Be careful, it'll bite you. I looked toward the sound. It was the one I'd met during work. The female educated youth with the black-rimmed glasses. She came close without saying a word, picked up a stick from the ground, and waved it in front of the turtle's mouth. The turtle immediately clamped down and wouldn't let go. Out of politeness, I reached out my hand. Let's get to know each other. My name is Wu Daqing. But the round-faced female educated youth didn't respond. Dig around and see. The spot where you caught the turtle. There must be turtle eggs there too. It clicked for me. Excited, I slapped my head. It was spring, and when turtles came ashore, they must have laid eggs. Immediately squat down and scrape open the loose soil. And sure enough, inside the loose soil I found a nest of turtle eggs, almost 50 or 60 of them. I cupped them in my hands. The shells were still warm. I toyed with them in my hand for a moment, then handed them all to the round-faced female educated youth. You found these. They're yours. But the female educated youth didn't take them. I know you catch them to sell in the city. Can you trade these turtle eggs for something for me? These days, speculation and profiteering are severely cracked down on. Hearing that, I firmly denied it. I caught these to take home for my younger siblings to eat. I heard everything you said to Brigade Leader Wu just now. If you don't agree, I'll report you to the Commune. What do you want me to trade for you? Lactation suppressant. I was startled. The next moment, I glanced at the round-faced female educated youth's chest, which didn't seem particularly large either. The round-faced female educated youth instantly blushed. What are you looking at? It's not for me. But isn't it a bit inappropriate for me to get that kind of thing? Either way, if you can't get it, I'll report you. Having said that, the round-faced female educated youth prepared to leave. But I don't even know your name yet. Lu Simming. With that, she trotted off. I stood rooted to the spot for a while. I'd heard many female educated youth took desperate risks to return to the city, but I never thought I'd run into such a thing myself. I had no choice but to steel myself, and planned to try my luck in the future. In the famine-stricken 1970s, I barely managed to survive with my younger siblings. But then I discovered that the back door of our house could lead to a future world. Last night, I caught a pheasant and took it to the future to sell, and made a whopping $1,000 just as I continued catching shrimp and turtles from the river. Thinking about my money-making plan, a round-faced female educated youth cornered me and threatened that if I didn't get her the lactation suppressant, she would report me to the Commune for poaching and selling wild game. I'd heard many female educated youth took desperate risks to return to the city, but I never thought I'd run into such a thing myself. I decided to try my luck in the future world. I went home, locked the door, carried the day's catch from the river, and once again arrived in 2024. I came a bit early. The night market here hadn't started yet. However, a few stalls selling crayfish were already set up early. This time I played it smart. First I walked around a few stalls carrying the crayfish, and soon caught the attention of one stall owner. Are you here to deliver goods? Let me take a look at your stuff. I brought the basket of crayfish closer. All top quality goods. Just trying to make a little money. If you're interested, name your price. Old Wong lifted a bag of crayfish and examined it carefully, then grinned and held up 2 fingers. I had no sense of the price, and didn't want to ask directly, so I simply held up 3 fingers in return. Old Wong scoffed at the counteroffer. Kid, you're not serious about doing business. Look at the crayfish on the counter. Not a pound under 18. I'll give you 21 a pound. Uncle is looking out for you, since you're young. Hearing that, I got a sense of the market. My own crayfish were clearly much bigger. I immediately stood up and pretended to leave, saying if he really thought the price wasn't right, I'd check other stalls. Old Wong put on a face of great difficulty making a decision. Fine, you kids don't have it easy making money. 30 it is. Then Old Wong weighed them, pulled out his phone. 85 pounds, total 2,550. I'll scan the code to pay you. I scratched my head awkwardly. What does scan the code mean? Old Wong laughed exaggeratedly. I say, little brother, you don't even know what scanning a code is? It's mobile payment. But I didn't have a phone. My rustic appearance didn't make Old Wong think twice. No problem, I have cash too. Old Wong patted his wallet, counted out a stack of cash for me. Next, he showed great interest in the turtle in my basket. He could tell at a glance it was wild, and it seemed to be of a decent age. He held up 2 fingers. 2,000. Hearing that, my heart skipped a beat with excitement. I never imagined that in the future, turtles would be so valuable. But I had already decided to give the turtle to Zhang Xinmei. After thinking it over, I pulled out the turtle eggs from the basket. Uncle Wong, I'll give you these for now. Next time I catch a turtle, I'll bring it to you. Old Wong saw that I was determined and not willing to sell, so he had no choice but to accept the turtle eggs. Leaving Old Wong, I followed the phone number and address Zhang Xinmei had left and arrived at the entrance of a community called Longhu Chunqiao. Seeing a pharmacy at the gate, I immediately remembered Lu Ximing's request for the lactation suppressant, so I steeled myself and walked in. The store manager was Shi Hongxia. She came out from behind the counter, flashing me a professional smile. Customer, what medicine do you need? I looked embarrassed, stammering. I need. Seeing this, Shi Hongxia immediately understood the situation, leaned in close to me. Is it for you or someone else? I quickly shook my head. Not for me. Shi Hongxia got it instantly, quickly took a small pill box from the counter, and pressed it into my hand. This is what you need, right? Emergency contraceptive after sex. I was dumbfounded. The small pill box felt scorching hot in my hand. Big sister. Actually, I wanted to buy a lactation suppressant. Shi Hongxia made a knowing face. Here, buy this for your girlfriend. Painless lactation suppression. No sagging. There's also an external application option, but you'll need to gently massage it in with your hands. As she spoke, Shi Hongxia reached out, about to demonstrate the technique on me. I stepped back, and at that moment, the image flashing through my mind was of Lu Ximing kneading steamed buns with both hands over and over. It made me dizzy. I'll take the first one. 1 course is 75, said Shi Hongxia. I recommend 2 courses. My heart was bleeding, but thinking about Lu Ximing's desperate need to return to the city, and how she might take even bigger risks, I decided to be a good person all the way. I steeled myself and asked, Big sister, do you have anything valuable here? Hearing that, Shi Hongxia immediately understood. I can see you're thin-skinned. You might as well buy several boxes at once. Buy 5, get 1 free. Big sister knows the stamina of you young folks. A few female nurses nearby covered their mouths, snickering. Hearing that, I hurriedly paid. The total came to $409. That money could buy more than 300 pounds of rice. Enough to feed me and my siblings for half a year. I just wondered which bastard would end up benefiting from those little blue pills. I just hoped Lu Ximing would learn her lesson and take care of her own body, because I had wasted too much time on the road and at the pharmacy. I only had 10 minutes left to stay in the future. Frustrated, I carried my basket to the community gate. The security guard saw my shabby appearance and stopped me directly. What are you here for? I took the turtle out of the basket on my back and gestured. I'm visiting a relative. Brought this turtle from the countryside for Zhang Xinmei. The guard looked me up and down again. Wait a moment, I'll make a call, he muttered under his breath. What a joke. Aunt Zhang would have a poor relative like you. Because time was running short, I was getting anxious. How about I leave the thing here and trouble you, big brother, to pass it along? But he flatly refused. At that moment, there was only 1 minute left before the countdown ended. Only then did the security guard wave me in. I hesitated for a moment. If I pushed the door open now, I would certainly disappear right before his eyes. I pointed behind him and said, Brother, I saw a big rat crawl into the table. Ah, where? While he turned around, I immediately pushed the door open and disappeared without a trace. Back at my home in the 1970s, at the back door. Now I was panting, hands on my thighs. I thought that was close. Almost didn't make it back. If I exceed the time limit, I'll be stuck there forever. I stared blankly at the stuff in my hands. Turns out I ran around in circles and bought nothing useful. Only got Lu Ximing some lactation suppressants and 6 boxes of Smurfs. Back home, I wasn't giving up. With a just try attitude, I pushed open the back door again. Whoosh. My vision blurred, and I was back at the night market. So within a single day, I could actually travel to the future world and back twice. I sprinted straight to Longhu Chunqiao residential complex. The security guard was surprised to see me again. Weren't you just inside? I panted, ran into an acquaintance. I went to say hello. Could you open the gate for me again, please? Meanwhile, Zhang Ximei got a call from the security guard. She waited and waited, but I didn't show up, so she came out to greet me. I smiled when I saw her. Aunt Zhang, I caught a turtle in the river today. Brought it especially for you. Zhang Ximei thought I came to sell wild greens. She didn't expect I'd come specifically to give her something. Her heart warmed instantly. Then she invited me in for a visit. But even though I was prepared, I was still stunned by how luxurious Aunt Zhang's home was. The sofa was soft. There was even an elevator upstairs. In the living room hung a family portrait of Aunt Zhang's family. 4 generations under one roof. A big family. I looked closely and noticed Aunt Zhang didn't look much like her brother and sister, but I didn't think much of it. I took the drink Aunt Zhang poured. Took a sip. So sweet. Every pore felt comfortable. Just then, I heard a thumping sound from the balcony. Sounded like rats. Zhang Ximei gave a mysterious smile. Daqing, come with me. Confused, I followed her into the balcony and was completely stunned. The wild pheasant eggs I sold her yesterday had hatched into a nest of chicks, fluffy, chirping, huddled in a cardboard box. As for the hard-working mother pheasant, She was temporarily placed in a dog crate. Just then, a message popped up on Zhang Ximei's phone. She beamed. My old sisters are bored silly. One of them is downstairs. I'll go down and give her 2 chicks. Be right back. Then Zhang Ximei pushed me back onto the sofa and casually turned on the big LCD TV in the living room. No sooner had Zhang Ximei left than the front door opened again. Who are you? Li Leo noticed a stranger in her grandmother's living room. She asked casually. I looked a little embarrassed. I'm the one who brought Aunt the wild greens. Li Leo immediately remembered. Yesterday grandma mentioned that young man selling wild greens. So you're Wu Daqing. I'm Li Leo, Zhang Ximei's granddaughter. She saw I was a bit nervous. She said and enthusiastically grabbed my hand. Let's watch TV together. We'll watch and wait for grandma. Grandma, it was the first time a girl held my hand. Embarrassed, I pulled it back. Soon Zhang Ximei returned. I felt it was about time. I stood up from the sofa. Aunt, I should be going. I'll come see you another day. Hearing that, Zhang Ximei seemed reluctant. Daqing, wait a moment. Zhang Ximei went to the kitchen. She brought out a lot of things. About 10 jin of pork in a bag, 50 jin of white flour, and plenty of soap and scented soap. I had never seen so many good things. I knew Aunt did this because she knew I was raising my younger siblings alone. She thought I had it really hard. Aunt, I can't accept any more. Thank you, Zhang Ximei said with a smile. The meat and flour were brought by my kids this morning. It's just me and my old man at home. We can't possibly use all this. If you don't take it, then take the turtle back too. As Zhang Ximei spoke, she deliberately pretended to be a little angry. I felt a bit embarrassed, but I really did need these things. Then next time I'll bring you some lettuce. Don't look down on it, Aunt. Zhang Ximei's eyes and brows immediately lit up with a smile. Sure, bring more. My old sisters love it. Really? Thank you, Aunt. I bowed repeatedly in excitement. Li Leo stared at me from the side. She felt she had seen my features somewhere before, but couldn't remember where. After seeing me off, Li Leo caught sight of the family portrait on the wall. She excitedly slapped her forehead. Grandma, I knew that Wu Daqing looked familiar. He looks like my great-uncle and great-aunt. And my eldest great-uncle is also called Wu Daqing. How can things be such a coincidence? Hearing this, Zhang Ximei's eyes reddened. Exactly. Last night, I couldn't sleep after returning. The more I thought, the more it seemed like the same name. No parents. Also has to raise younger siblings alone. Li Leo's eyes also grew wet. Should we tell this news to great-uncle and great-aunt? They'll be very happy to know. Zhang Ximei wiped her tears. Forget it. Your eldest great-uncle has been gone for so many years. Bringing it up suddenly will only make them sad. I understand. Grandma. Li Leo comforted her grandmother for a while. Meanwhile, I returned to my 1970s home. I held the things Zhang Xini gave me, looking at them over and over. They say city people eat rich and strong flour. This flour is as white as snow, but I only have a few cabinets at home. Now I don't know where to hide all this. What troubles me most is the 10 jin of pork belly. Right now, Xiaoyuan and Wan Bao are staring at the meat, drool hanging half a foot long. Brother, when can we eat meat? I'm so worried. Wrinkles are showing on my forehead. How to eat this meat without anyone finding out? Another layer of difficulty. Then Aunt Nyo next door started making noise. Old man, tell me, why does my nose keep smelling meat all day long? Brother, there really is a meat smell. Xiaoyuan kept sniffing the air. Wan Bao had a pained little face. Second brother, the meat smell is coming from Grandma's house. Grandma's family is cooking meat tonight. Xiaoyuan tightly gripped Wan Bao's little hand, silent. Instead, he picked up a stone and hurled it hard toward the east courtyard. Clang. From the east yard immediately came Bai Yulan's scream. Damn it. Which little bastard threw a rock at me? He stood on higher ground and looked west, and saw Xiaoyuan staring at him with wolf-like eyes. Innocent Wan Bao also opened her little hands and flung a handful of dust. Bai Yulan was amused by Wan Bao's clumsy move. If you want meat, go to that sheep brother of yours. Want my meat? Not a chance. I clenched my fists tightly. Let's wait and see. Just you wait. With you? Bai Yulan looked disdainful. Hunger hurts, doesn't it? I turned a deaf ear. I couldn't understand why Bai Yulan treated me like this. Fine, but why go after Xiaoyuan and Wan Bao too? Aunt Nyo, who never got along with Bai Yulan, taunted from across the yard. Today I finally understand why you can't stand those kids. You're afraid they'll steal your meat. Aunt Nyo deliberately drew out the how. Does eating this extra bite of meat smooth out the wrinkles on your face? Hearing this, Bai Yulan smiled and put her hands on her hips. Why don't you just admit you're having a hard time? You have to calculate every mouthful of meat. You don't even have a son to carry on the family line. What do you have to compare with me? Hearing this, Aunt Nyo got angry. She had given birth to 2 daughters. No sons. In a quarrel, she always came up short compared to Bai Yulan. What's so great about eating a piece of meat? Today, I'll stew meat too. Your whole family only eats 50 cents worth of meat. Today, I'll eat 60 cents worth. Hearing that made me happy. I knew the chance to eat meat had come. I quickly called Xiaoyuan and Wan Bao to close the door and come inside. While gathering firewood, I also closed the doors and windows. By the time Aunt Nyo from the west courtyard started eating meat, our meat was already out of the pot, boiled in plain water, dipped in salt and soy sauce. The staple was fried oil pancakes. The 3 siblings ate meat and oil pancakes alternately. They ate with such satisfaction. Xiaoyuan and Wan Bao ate, giggling and laughing. These past 2 days felt like a dream. So delicious. Xiaoyuan and Wan Bao's faces and hands were greasy. I took out another bar of soap, washed the 2 siblings until they smelled nice. If it had been before, this kind of heavenly life, I wouldn't have dared to even imagine. After eating, I hung the leftover meat and bread on the beam to hide them. It was almost dark. I wrapped 2 jin of pork in oil paper, plus 2 gene of white flour. Then I hoisted a large bundle of firewood onto my shoulder and went out. I did this to avoid attracting attention. As soon as I opened the door, I ran into Aunt Nyo next door. Carrying firewood this late at night. What are you up to? I gave Aunt Nyo a dirty look. I heard your family has plenty of meat. I was planning to trade this bundle of firewood for some meat. Aunt Lou was so startled, she looked like she'd seen a plague god. She stepped back 2 paces and avoided me. Are you crazy with hunger? You want to trade a bundle of wood for my meat? I didn't want to hear her cursing. I walked away with the firewood. Just then, at Brigade Leader Wu Gang's house, they had just finished dinner. Wu Gang's wife, Wang Yumei, was clearing the table. Seeing me approach cheerfully, she slammed the door shut. Auntie, it's me. Why did you close the door? Wang Yumei whispered, trying to shoo me away. Don't come here, trying to flatter me. We don't have extra grain to keep supporting you. I deliberately cleared my throat. Auntie, I just came to give Uncle some firewood. I'll put down the wood and leave. This shout was very loud. Wu Gang not only heard and came out, but also the neighbors came out into their yards to watch the commotion. Wu Gang came out, glared, and saw his own wife and children there. Why didn't you open the door? I deliberately ignored that. Uncle, where should I put this firewood? Wu Gang grunted. Just put it anywhere. Look at this kid, shifty-eyed. No telling what scheme he's cooking up now. I put down the firewood and went inside. I secretly took the meat and flour I had hidden in my arms and shoved them into Wu Gang's hands. For you and Auntie. I was afraid others would see, so I deliberately used the firewood bundle as cover. Wu Gang couldn't help frowning. He lowered his voice and asked, where did you get these things? Next to him, Wang Yumei was also startled. Daqing, tell Auntie, you haven't done anything illegal, have you? Of course I couldn't tell them the secret of the 2 doors, so I told the lie I had prepared. Today I went to the city and saved a high-ranking official. These things were given to me in gratitude. But I was afraid my grandparents would find out and come asking, so I didn't tell anyone. Hearing this, Wu Gang's gaze fell on the flour and meat. The flour was the fortune brand that city people ate. Even with ration tickets, ordinary people couldn't necessarily buy it. So he believed it a little. Then tell me in detail, how exactly did you save the official? I had the story memorized perfectly, with great excitement. I told the whole thing. Wu Gang and Wang Yumei were half believing, half doubting. In the end, Wu Gang pushed the flour and meat back. Take it all back for Xiaoyuan and Wan Bao to eat. Those 2 kids are too skinny. They need nourishment. I pushed the things back again. Don't worry, uncle. Since I could bring it to you, it means there's more at home. Wang Yumei was afraid Wu Gang would push it back again, so she spoke up first. The child gave it to you. Just keep it. It's the child's good intention. Wu Gang blushed for having such a useless wife, and I chuckled twice. Uncle, could you lend me your bicycle for a couple of days? Wu Gang laughed and pointed at my nose. So you're after my bicycle, kid. Are you going to do some profiteering? No chance. Wang Yumei had taken my gift, so she deliberately scolded Wu Gang. The child rarely asks for anything. Lend him that thing for a couple of rides. It won't lose 2 wheels, will it? Saying this, she went back into the house and brought the bike key. Take it, this little matter. Auntie can still decide. As she saw me out, Wang Yumei habitually said politely, Daqing, why don't you stay for a meal before you go? I tilted my head and saw there were still 2 eggs in the chicken coop, not yet collected. If any feels bad, then give me those 2 eggs from the coop. Wang Yumei's face immediately fell. This kid is too shameless. Eggs are so precious. They can be traded for rice or money. Wu Gang glared at his wife. Go back inside and get a few more for the child. It's rare for the child to ask. I smiled. At home, there was a cabinet full of eggs. I would enjoy them slowly. How could that be? Did I really covet those 2 eggs in Wang Yumei's coop? Mainly, later when I ate eggs, I wouldn't have to keep hiding it. I could just say Brigade Leader Wu Gang gave them. Then I went to the coop myself and took 2 eggs, wrapped them in my clothes, leaving an opening. Walking out the door, I shouted, thanks for the eggs, Auntie. Xiaoyuan and Wan Bao haven't had eggs in a while. Wang Yumei stood in the yard, also craning her neck. Don't be polite with Auntie. When the eggs are finished, just tell Auntie. Wu Gang felt a lump in his chest, stifled and unable to vent. How did he end up with such an embarrassing wife? Just 2 eggs. Hearing her, people would think she gave a whole basket. The surrounding villagers greeted me one after another. When I said I only took 2 eggs, no one believed it. They chattered noisily. No telling this time what magic potion Wu Daqing had fed the brigade leader's wife to wring so many eggs out of him. Halfway there, I felt my stomach acting up. I had a bad feeling. As the saying goes, a dog's stomach can't hold 2 liang of lard. Suddenly having too much grease. My intestines couldn't handle it. I suddenly thought, how are Xiaoyuan and Wan Bao at home? I barely managed to get to the door. From a distance, I saw Lu Siming waiting at the base of my wall. Lu Siming was very cautious when she saw me. Here I am. My legs were weak. I pushed the bike and moved toward the yard. I saw. Then what about the thing I asked you to do? I weakly raised my arm and pointed inside the house. Talk about it later. First, save lives. Lu Siming reacted very quickly. By the time I dragged myself into the house, I found that Lu Siming had already mixed a bowl of salt water. She held it out for Xiaoyuan and Wan Bao to drink. Seeing me, Xiaoyuan and Wan Bao called out pitifully, brother. Both siblings were pale, sweating cold sweat. Lu Siming looked at me accusingly. What exactly did you feed the children? I was weak, holding my stomach. I knew I couldn't hide it from her. Just told the truth. Eating meat? The meat. Lu Siming's expression froze for a moment. But how could eating meat cause this? Wait till I get back. I'll explain in detail. The female educated youth sneaked into my house in the middle of the night, just to wait for me to get the lactation suppressant. But I not only bought it for her, I even threw in a box of blue little umbrellas. Before she could ask where the stuff was, I walked back out. You look after my brother and sister for me. I'll go get some anti-diarrhea medicine. Looking at me holding onto the doorstep, Lu Siming looked worried. Can you manage? Don't worry. In a man's dictionary, there's no. The word can't. And at a time like this, you're still joking. I got on my bicycle. I didn't go to the village clinic. Instead, I went straight to the backyard. Through the portal between two worlds, I came to the future. The pharmacy at night was brightly lit. I spotted at a glance. Sure, Hongxia was counting medicines at the counter. Big sister, I need medicine for diarrhea. Hongxia saw me, my face pale, sweating cold sweats. She was startled. That's serious? You should go to the hospital. I'll call an ambulance for you, she said, pulling out her phone to call. I quickly stopped her. Just give me the medicine. My little brother and sister are waiting for me to bring it back. What did you eat wrong? Hearing that, I felt a bit embarrassed. We ate meat that had gone bad. Suddenly too much grease. Couldn't handle it. Sure, Hongxia stared at me blankly. Her eyes got a little moist. What about your parents? They're gone. Sure, Hongxia didn't expect that I, who seemed strong, actually lived such a hard life. She sniffled. You hold on a moment. I'll get the medicine for you right now. She first pressed a small handful of medicine into my hand, then shoved a bag of glucose into my hand. Oh, I'll wash it down. I tipped my head back with the glucose and swallowed all the medicine in my palm. Immediately felt much better. My strength gradually came back. Sure, Hongxia checked my temperature again. Finally, she stuffed a whole big plastic bag of medicine into my hands. I stared at the bag full of medicine in my hand. My mind went a bit blank. This is way too much. One bag is for diarrhea. I've written down how to take it. The rest are calcium tablets I got for your brother and sister, and protein powder to help them grow. Also, I prepared some common cold medicine for you, even though I couldn't quite understand what each medicine was and what it did. But I knew in my heart, this bag of stuff must be worth a lot of money. So I took out the remaining 2,000 plus yuan from my pocket and pulled it all out. Thank you, big sister. On behalf of my brother and sister, thank you. Seeing this, Sure Hongxiao immediately pushed the money back. No need for money. All this is my gift to you. I insisted on paying, but Hongxiao refused repeatedly. Don't worry, little brother. These things are nothing to your big sister. Big sister, my name is Wu Daqing. I will repay you. Daqing, from now on just call me Sister Xia. I'll consider you an extra little brother. If you ever need help in the future, come find your sister. I pulled open the pharmacy door and went straight back to the backyard of my home. I popped the medicine out of the blister packs and put them in my pocket, then hid the rest of the medicine in the grass nearby. Xiao Yuan and Nuan Bao had stopped running to the toilet, but their faces weren't much better. Cold sweat was beading on their foreheads, probably because Xiao Yuan and Nuan Bao said they were cold. Lu Siming had even heated the Kong a few times. Did you get the medicine? I took out the medicine. Lu Siming looked at the pills, thought they seemed strange, but didn't say anything. She coaxed the two kids to take the medicine as if it were candy. I thought to myself, she really is a woman who's had children. She knows how to handle kids. After taking the medicine, the two kids quickly fell asleep. I wrapped up 10 eggs and handed them to Lu Siming. Really, thank you. Take these eggs back with you. Lu Siming was stunned. Where did you get so many eggs? The village chief gave them to me. Don't feel burdened. Even if I'm not burdened, I can't accept. There are so many people at the educated youth point. Too many people, easy to let it slip. I thought that made sense. So I gave up. It's late now, I'll send you back. Lu Siming was about to mention the lactation suppressant, but Xiao Yuan and Nuan Bao woke up. Xiao Yuan got up and hugged one of Lu Siming's arms. Sister Siming, it's so dark outside. Why don't you stay at our place for the night before leaving? Lu Siming's cheeks immediately flushed red. But big sister can't stay overnight here. It's against the rules. Nuan Bao got up and hugged Lu Siming's other arm. But I also can't bear to let you go. I like you, sister. Tonight, I want to sleep holding you, sister. Lu Siming shot me a pleading look. I chuckled. How about we let sister stay for a meal? Then let her go, okay? The two kids had run to the toilet so many times. Their stomachs were long empty. Now hearing that they could keep Lu Siming for dinner, they clapped and cheered together. I didn't give Lu Siming a chance to refuse. I turned and went to the kitchen to start rolling out noodles. The village says you're raising two kids and almost begging for food. I didn't expect you to live more comfortably than anyone. To be honest, I've only been living this well for 2 days. No one would believe that. If I'm lying, I'm a bastard. Today's meat is my first meal of it too. Xiao Yuan looked at me and grinned foolishly. Brother, put 2 more eggs in sister's bowl. Nuan Bao stared at Lu Siming, unable to look away. I wish sister could stay and be our mom. Xiao Yuan immediately corrected him. What are you thinking? Can she be our mom? If she stays, she'll be our sister-in-law. What if our brother stays a bachelor forever? Lu Siming pretended not to hear, feeding the fire in the stove pit. Hearing this, cold sweat ran down my back. Every time I think of the man who made Lu Siming by lactation suppressant, I get filled with anger. After dinner, Lu Siming helped me clear the dishes. I quietly went to the backyard, found the lactation suppressant hidden in the haystack. I couldn't help feeling a pang of pity for Lu Siming, but what could I do about it? It was all Lu Siming's own choice. Besides, since she came to me for this, she must have chosen to trust me. Otherwise, if I let even a hint slip, the quota for work transfer back to the city would never come to her. With that thought, I tore off all the packaging of the suppressant and wrapped it in newspaper. When it came time to unwrap the little umbrellas, my hand stopped, but I had taken too long. Grown a bit impatient waiting, Lu Siming came looking for me from the front yard. Need me to help you find it? No need. I already found the stuff. I hesitated for a moment, but still handed the little umbrellas together with the suppressant over to Lu Siming. Lu Siming froze for a moment, stared at me blankly. What's this? Oh, it's a free gift they gave me when I bought the medicine. Later, give it to your friend along with it. Lu Siming subconsciously rubbed it between her fingers a couple of times. Couldn't help looking puzzled. How to use it? You give it to your friend. He'll know how to use it. Lu Siming gave an awkward smile. I hope you can help my friend. Keep this secret. I nodded, thinking to myself, what friend? Who would buy this kind of thing for a friend? But as a man, I couldn't very well call her out on it. I need to get back quickly. If the other educated youth find out I didn't come home tonight, I won't be able to explain. I gestured to Lu Siming to head for the gate, but Lu Siming pointed at the back gate of my yard. Isn't this a door? Let's go out through the back. No. Before I could stop her, Lu Siming had already opened the back door. I stared at the faint path beyond the door for a long time. It was still the path from my backyard to the village. What? Can't we take this road? No. The door was broken before. Let's go. I thought to myself, am I the only one who can pass through these two doors? Or had the two doors disappeared? Could I no longer go to the future world through this door? My heart was uneasy. I was afraid that when I opened the door again, it would still be the path from my house to the village. After sending Lu Siming off, I immediately pulled open the back door. But to my surprise, I once again reached the future world. I was cycling around leisurely when I spotted a blurry figure in the distance. He was walking with difficulty on the road, looking like he was in great discomfort. I rode up close and saw that it was a very old man. Sir, are you feeling unwell? The old man was in so much pain, he could barely stand. My chest hurts. Young man, could you take me to the hospital? Hearing this, I quickly got off the bike to help him. Let me help you onto my bike. But I don't know the way to the hospital. Can you tell me how to get there? When the old man saw my face, he was completely stunned. He stood frozen for more than half a minute. It's just like him, exactly the same, the old man said, and tears couldn't stop streaming down his face. I was a bit confused. Sir, are you in pain? Hold on a moment. Hold tight to me. I stopped asking questions. With the old man on my bike, I sped off in the direction he had pointed. Finally, I spotted a hospital by the roadside. I pushed my bike straight inside. A security guard tried to stop me. Hey kid, how can you bring a bike in here? I didn't have time to argue. I shouted at the top of my lungs for help. Quick, someone, help. Hearing the shouts, the on-duty doctor and nurse rushed out of the ER. After the doctor examined him, he put the old man on N4. He felt much better. He looked at me gratefully. Young man, what's your name? Hi, my name is Wu Daqing. You're also called Wu Daqing. The old man's tears flowed again. Daqing, I can't believe you saved me again. Are you well up there in heaven? Hearing this, I felt like I was one step away from breaking down. After a conversation, I learned the whole story. It turned out that during a mission, the old man insisted on taking the mountain road, which led to a mudslide. The car flipped, the driver and guard died on the spot. His leg was pinned under the vehicle, and he couldn't move at all. For someone of his generation, life didn't matter much. What mattered was the confidential document inside the car that needed to be delivered to a superior. The situation was extremely dangerous. The fuel tank was leaking, and small flames were already shooting out from the rear. Just then, a young man named Wu Daqing happened to pass by. He risked the explosion to pull the old man out of the car, but due to his oversight, he didn't manage to bring out the document in time. The raging fire had already caught the corner of the file. When that young man, Wu Daqing, learned about the confidential document, he didn't hesitate for a second before charging into the flames. Just then, the overturned car exploded. When rescue arrived and put out the fire, they found Wu Daqing's entire back was burned, but he still held the document tightly against his chest. A brave young man had died, and the one who made the mistake, the old man, was still alive. When the story reached this point, he stopped talking. He fell into deep thought. I was also deeply moved by the heroic deeds of that young man, who shared my name and surname. I wanted to ask more about what happened next, but the countdown in my mind reminded me that I only had 10 minutes left. I had to go back to my own world with the bike. Just then, the old man's security guard arrived first. He told the old man that his family would be here soon. Wait till my children come. I'll introduce you to them. I didn't want any reward for saving him. I made an excuse to go to the bathroom, turned around, and pushed open the hospital door, passed through the door between worlds, and slipped back home. But after I left, Zhang Weiman, who stayed at the hospital, was furious. He was searching everywhere for his savior. Then Zhang Xinmei arrived at the ward. When she heard the name Wu Daqing, she didn't panic at all. Instead, she burst out laughing. Don't worry, Dad. I'll definitely bring Wu Daqing back. Zhang Xinmei grinned. She dropped a bombshell. The one who sold you wild vegetables the day before yesterday, and the one who gave you the pure wild soft-shell turtle today, are both me. Zhang Weiman was thrilled. He gave strict orders to find me, no matter what it took. Meanwhile, back home, I looked at Xiao Yuan and Wan Bao, rolled over, and went back to sleep. I had just lain down on the Kong and closed my eyes, when I was suddenly woken by the wailing of Bai Yulan next door. That woman, just because she was angry about a dream, had dumped a pile of garbage mixed with her grandson Jinbao's poop, right in front of my gate. I hadn't slept well last night. Seeing the filth outside, my veins bulged instantly. I turned around, grabbed a shovel, and threw the garbage back in front of Bai Yulan's house. The next second, Bai Yulan rushed out. I picked up a rock and threw it hard. She thought I was throwing it at her, got frightened, and ran away. But the stone grazed her ear, and with a crash, smashed the window glass of her house, shattering it all over the ground. Shovel on my shoulder, I strode straight toward her yard. I had diarrhea last night, and my face was sallow. Now my expression was even darker, terrifying to look at. Bai Yulan thought I had gone crazy. She was so scared she wet herself and scrambled back inside. He's crazy. Murder. Wu Daqing is going to kill someone. She hid behind the door, shaking, but still remembered to threaten me by saying she'd report me. I glared at her. Bai Yulan, I warned. You've been bullying me, haven't you? Got used to it. If you've got guts, don't run. Today I'm taking you down with me. I gripped the shovel tight and was about to swing it at Bai Yulan. But that old witch was so scared she forgot to run. She shuddered violently, and a stream of yellow liquid ran down her leg. Then, all the neighbors came out to see the commotion. A few women who usually couldn't stand her burst out laughing. Aunt Neo doubled over with laughter. Bai Yulan knew she had disgraced herself. Her face flushed bright red, and she scrambled back into the house. Wu Laogui stormed out, glaring at me. Shameful. But instead of getting angry, I just grinned. I slung the shovel over my shoulder. After all, the whole village was watching. I hadn't really intended to hit an elder. Besides, I now held the door between two worlds. Wasn't planning to actually fight an elder. Besides, now I hold the two-realm gate. I'd long looked down on Bai Yulan. All these trivial matters she stirred up. Fine, I'll leave. Tell that old woman of yours. Next time you provoke me, I'll be back. I threw out that harsh line, then turned and left. Only one word in my heart. Awesome. Back home, I directly heated up the flatbread I made yesterday and steamed a full small basin of egg custard. Unexpectedly, Xiao Yuan looked at the table full of food, his eyes full of worry, afraid that after this meal we'd run out of food. Without a word, I directly stuffed a big piece of flatbread into his mouth. Delicious? Xiao Yuan chewed hard twice, nodded repeatedly. Only food in your mouth is yours. Eat as much as you want. Turns out Nguyen Bao understood that. One mouthful of egg custard with one mouthful of flatbread. In a baby voice, she kept saying she wanted to grow tall. I was even crazier, wolf down. 3 pieces of flatbread and 2 bowls of egg custard. Fully made up for the loss from last night's diarrhea. Then I pulled out the calcium tablets and vitamins from Shi Hongxia. I carefully instructed Xiao Yuan on how to take them with his sister. Pop them in your mouth. I immediately decided, no going to work today. Not only do I need to deliver crayfish to Old Wang tonight, but at home there's no place to store food. Better to exchange it all for cash and grain coupons. In this era, profiteering is undoubtedly suicide, but I have to seek fortune in danger. So I quickly packed half a basket of rice and half a basket of flour, and used an empty can to divide out 1 can of milk powder and 1 can of honey. I pedaled my bicycle straight to the munitions factory staff housing in Huangnua town. In this place, grain is a surefire hard currency. Who knew? Just as I parked my bike at the staff housing entrance, the gatekeeper uncle bellowed and blocked my way. Facing his scrutinizing gaze, I not only didn't panic, but instead pulled out half a can of honey, with a face full of smiles, claiming I was a relative from the countryside visiting. At the same time, a pack of Dakium and cigarettes prepared in advance slipped into the old man's palm without a trace. The old man glanced down with his eyelids. His attitude was simply a seamless switch. Huh? What's your relative's name? The old man squinted. Without hesitation, I blurted a name, Lu Jianxi. Who knew? This trick really worked every time. After all, in these times, Jianxi is everywhere. Sure enough, the old man didn't even bother questioning me, just waved his hand and let me in. A sister in her early 30s came walking towards me with an empty basket. Her refined demeanor definitely marked her as a high-level intellectual. I figured she'd just come back from the grain station empty-handed and was holding a belly full of frustration. So I silently sidled up and whispered, "Need rice or flour?" Those 4 words suddenly popped out, startled the sister so much she jumped back half a step. Immediately she looked around warily. "You have grain?" I quickly checked left and right to confirm no one was around, then lowered my voice and began to lie, saying my relative wasn't home. And I really didn't want to haul these dozens of jean of white flour back to the countryside. 30 cents a jean. The sister looked hesitant after hearing that. Then she tentatively countered, "Can I pay with national grain coupons?" I immediately scratched my ear, stuck to my bottom line, and gave a price. These 20-odd jean of white flour for 50 jean of national grain coupons. Definitely more than enough. But not only did the sister not bargain, her gaze actually fixed on the milk powder in the basket. How much for the milk powder? 5 yuan. Not a cent less. I never expected. I thought this deal was going to fall through. But the sister suddenly slapped her thigh. Deal done on the spot. My heart churned with shock. No wonder. The munitions factory families are so wealthy. Then the sister smiled and asked me to wait. Turned and went upstairs to get the coupons. Just in case, I immediately exchanged the names Wu Yunfang and Wu Daqing, so that if we ran into trouble, we could perfectly match the code. Just then, a young man with slicked back greasy hair suddenly approached me. "You're a profiteer, aren't you?" He walked up close, abruptly threw out those words. But I wasn't flustered at all. I kept a cold face and insisted I was visiting relatives. Unexpectedly, the young man shot a sharp glance into my basket. "I'm sure the things in your basket are definitely stolen goods." I gave him a fierce glare, my heart pounding. Really couldn't figure out what he was plotting. At the critical moment, Wu Yunfang, holding a little girl by the hand, finally came down the stairs. I instantly felt like I'd grabbed a lifeline. I pedaled my bike hard and rushed towards her. I desperately shot Wu Yunfang a meaningful look. Unexpectedly, she reacted quickly, blurted out my name. Then the young man saw that we really did know each other, turned and left without a word. I stared coldly at his back from the corner of my eye, tentatively asked, "Is he also from the munitions factory?" Who knew? Wu Yunfang just gave a helpless smile. "Workshop director's kid, Tian Xiaowu. He's okay, just has a lot of friends on the street. Used to have 2 girlfriends before." I heard that and immediately understood this euphemistic way of saying it. Behind it, clearly accused Tian Xiaowu of being a good-for-nothing, a wastrel who not only hangs with bad company, but also messes around with women. Yet a flicker of wariness crossed Wu Yunfang's eyes. "Why are you asking about him?" I quickly laughed it off. "Just said he looked about my age. Just asked casually. But really, thank you." My Mimi just weaned. Solid food hurts her stomach. Your milk powder really saved my skin. Hearing that, I noticed the little girl beside her. I never expected. The more I looked at this child, the more familiar she seemed. From her bright, lively eyes, I caught a trace of incongruously gentle kindness. The little girl was hopping around my bicycle. Wu Yunfang quickly raised her voice. Zhang Xinmei. Stop that. Those 3 words Zhang Xinmei hit me like a thunderbolt. I suddenly realized. Before, I had seen a childhood photo of her at Zhang Xinmei's home, and this little girl in front of me was practically her spitting image. I actually, in this era, had run into the young Zhang Xinmei in the flesh. After the surprise, a strong sense of shame suddenly welled up in me. I just took supplies from their house earlier, and now I'm selling them at a high price to her own mother. This is simply not human behavior. Sister Yunfang, this jar of honey was really meant for my relative, but I feel a connection with you. Take it home for the child to drink. Wu Yunfang was immediately flattered and surprised. She kept waving her hands, absolutely unwilling to accept unearned favor. I had a sudden inspiration. I steeled myself and started fabricating wildly. I said it was my own free, wild honey scooped from a tree, except for a couple of bee stings. It cost me nothing. Besides, I wanted to ask Sister Yunfang for a favor. I wonder if Sister Yunfang would be willing to help me. If any of your neighbors want to buy white flour or rice, I'd like Sister Yunfang to help connect me. This time Wu Yunfang finally let her guard down completely. I immediately patted my chest and promised. From now on, if I get any milk powder, I'll bring it here first. Then I carefully put away the large sum of money. I was just planning to move to the next compound. Just as I turned around, that persistent Tian Xiaowu from earlier blocked my path again. I stared hard at him, forced down the panic inside. Are you really Wu Yunfang's relative? Didn't you just see? Who expected the words that Tian Xiaowu spat out? Made me feel like I'd fallen into an ice cave. Cut it out. I saw her counting grain coupons for you. If I report you now, you'll definitely get arrested. Indeed, he came with bad intentions. My face instantly darkened to the extreme. Buddy, what do you mean? I knew perfectly well inside. In this kind of thing, buyer and seller are equally guilty. I absolutely cannot, because of my own greed, drag Wu Yunfang's family down with me. Who knew? The next second, this kid would finally show his true colors. From now on, if you have grain or coupons, just sell them to me. I want in on this business too. How much per caddy? That's right. 15 cents? That much difference? Tian Xiaowu wasn't flustered at all. Instead, he put on a cocky face and declared that he himself had to take on huge risks. I nodded without a word. Then I kicked the bike pedal, ready to bolt. Seeing I was about to slip away, Tian Xiaowu grabbed the handlebars in a death grip. 20 cents. Absolutely no more than that. I sneered and waved my hand. Even 30 cents is no deal. How much money can you have in your pockets? And you want to play at being a middleman? Who do you think you're looking down on? Tian Xiaowu put on a slacker attitude. It's mealtime. I'll treat you to a feast at the state-run restaurant. Dare you? Whoever chickens out is a coward. Tian Xiaowu, familiar as ever, ordered a whole table of rich dishes at the state-run restaurant. I was so stunned I kept swallowing my saliva. You see, I'd worked myself to death for 10 work points in the production team and only earned 15 cents. I gave a cold laugh. I probed to find out his background. But that kid had sharp eyes. He came straight out and said he'd had his eye on my imported milk powder and white flour for a while. Then he patted his chest and guaranteed, as long as I dared to supply the goods, he dared to sell them all. 100 caddies of rice would earn 20 yuan. That's as much as a city worker's monthly salary. But this trade was a life and death gamble. I was hesitating whether to trust him. Just then, a high-level worker wearing a new military uniform and army leather boots mysteriously sidled up to Tian Xiaowu. He was drenched in sweat from anxiety. He blurted out that his kid couldn't poop from eating coarse grains. He begged to get some fine grains. Tian Xiaowu's eyes darted. He deliberately steered the conversation toward me. Before I could react, the middle-aged man locked his eyes on the bag at my feet, the sack of rice in the basket. The next second, an unopened pack of big production brand cigarettes was shoved straight into my hand. The man's eyes were frantic. He begged me to share the grain with him. Tian Xiaowu immediately played along. He said I was a poor brother who didn't have enough grain at home. I went along with it. I gave up the rice on the spot. I never expected. The man didn't even hesitate. He slapped down 6 yuan right away. Tian Xiaowu cheerfully split 4 yuan with me and pocketed 2 for himself. He turned and raised an eyebrow at me, showing off. I was completely convinced at that point, even though I earned 1 yuan less. All the risk was on him, and the money came back incredibly fast. Well fed and satisfied, I put on a big smile. I promised to deliver the goods to his family building another day, but Tian Xiaowu waved his hands repeatedly. He said the family building was too conspicuous. Then he mysteriously handed me an address. I looked down, and my heart suddenly churned with shock. The delivery spot this kid was borrowing was actually the town's military industrial reserve warehouse. After some behind-the-scenes talk, I finally figured out that Tian Xiaowu's dad was a workshop director, and his mom was a union leader. This kid, as the only child exempt from going to the countryside, relied on relatives in the bureau and forced his way into the black market. He not only exchanged all the grain coupons in my hands for cash at market price, but even slipped me a few cloth coupons extra. The two of us wolfed down every last bit of the feast on the table. Tian Xiaowu got some oil paper from the waitress and packed the remaining 5 meat buns for me. All the while he stared at me and pressed me on when I could deliver. Actually, the goods were sitting at home, but I forced myself to keep my mouth shut. I just said, wait for my call. Then we settled it on the spot. From now on, we'd always meet and trade at night. Stepping out the restaurant door, my blood was racing through my veins. This feeling was even better than making 2,000 yuan in the future. I pressed down on the pedal, and headed straight for the supply cooperative. At home, Xiao Yuan and Nguyen Bao wore worn-out, altered clothes every day. This time I had to get them a new outfit. But when I stood in front of the clothing counter, touching this and looking at that, the face of the supply cooperative clerk across from me instantly dropped to freezing point. My shabby, country bumpkin look made the supply cooperative clerk roll his eyes wildly. He just kept munching sunflower seeds, without even giving me a proper glance. Actually, having been to the future supermarket once, I already turned up my nose at these old, outdated goods. But no matter how good the clothes from the future were, I didn't dare bring them back. Too flashy, I'd definitely be arrested as an enemy spy. So I had to stand at the counter and study each item. But the clerk, seeing me looking like a hick, impatiently started shooing me out. He snapped, "If you're not buying, don't block other customers." Yet there wasn't a single soul behind me. It was obvious he was a snob looking down on people, thinking about the future world, where even managers smile and serve you. And this clerk's face was longer than a donkey's. It instantly ticked me off. I pointed at a pink floral patterned blouse and asked the price. The clerk rolled his eyes so high they nearly disappeared. He very impatiently said, 5 yuan plus 20 cloth coupons. Actually, I really did like that pink one, but I deliberately pointed at the one hanging highest up and shouted, "I want the blue one." This clerk was ridiculously short. He had to huff and puff, drag over a stool, and climb up to hook the clothes down. Just when he finally handed me the blue blouse with great effort, I took it, gave it a fake look, and spat out, "Not good looking." The clerk blew his top on the spot. He snatched the clothes back and yelled that if I couldn't afford it, I should get lost. I paid him no mind. After he fumed and climbed back on the stool to rehang the blue clothes, I cheerfully pointed at the pink one and said I wanted to buy it. He barely held back his rage, took down the pink one. I immediately put on a troubled face. I shook my head, saying the blue was still better. Now the clerk's eyes nearly popped out. Gritting his teeth, he hung the pink one back. Then I put on the most honest, simple look. I kept sighing about how hard it was for country folks to earn work points. In the end, I insisted I still wanted the pink one. He, black-faced, just used the pole to bring down the pink one, and I immediately shouted, "Wait a second." Changed my mind, said the blue one both looks dirty. And still, I have to buy the blue one. At this point, the clerk's face was blacker than the temple statue of Lord Bao. He pointed at my nose and cursed, saying I was just here to cause trouble. I still wore that honest, simple grin. I whipped out nearly 20 yuan from my pocket, along with a pile of grain and cloth coupons, and slammed them on the counter. Then, right in front of him, I slowly, deliberately stuffed them back into my pocket. A country bumpkin carrying so much cash? The clerk was instantly dumbfounded. His face said, "If you change your mind again, I'll eat you alive." But today I was determined to cure him of his nasty attitude. I decisively said I'd take the pink one. Seeing he was so pissed, he was about to vomit blood. I cheerfully took out 5 yuan. I bought that pink blouse. Then, I spent another 2 yuan to pick out a sailor stripe shirt for Xiao Yuan. Now the clerk's attitude instantly straightened up. He was afraid of looking down on people again, and getting me to report him to the manager and have his bonus docked. Then I turned around and raided the oil, salt, sauce, and vinegar section. Whatever the house was missing, I bought. But when I totaled the bill, I suddenly realized money from the future wasn't as good a deal as money from now. A full basket of goods, besides the 7 yuan for clothes. All the odds and ends together cost less than 2 yuan. I thought about buying some snacks for my younger siblings, but I saw 2 sales clerks at the candy counter, staring at me and whispering. I smiled and walked over. I asked for a caddy of white rabbit candy and 2 caddies of sunflower seeds. I hadn't expected the shop assistant to be so cunning, afraid of repeating the same mistake. He actually insisted on taking the money first before daring to weigh it. If I really wanted to mess with him, just by sorting raw and roasted melon seeds by flavor, I could confuse him to death. But I couldn't be bothered to argue. Finally, I headed back with a full load, stepping out of the supply cooperative. But the moment I stepped out, an old lady with trembling, arthritic legs suddenly crept up to me furtively. She sobbed shakily, "Big brother, all my sons are dead. Only a little grandson left, about to starve. I grew up poor. Can't bear to see this." I immediately pulled out 2 mao and handed it over. But the old lady kept waving her hands, stating flatly she wasn't begging, but wanted to trade. I looked puzzled, asked what she had to trade. She dragged me into a dark street corner. The next second, from a worn handkerchief close to her body, she pulled out a glossy, warm white jade guanine pendant. Even though I'm no expert, I could tell at a glance it was a top-grade antique. The old lady, trembling, named a price of just 5 yuan, plus 2 jin of food coupons. This was a hot potato, the old for liquor. If I got caught red-handed, I'd be forced to wear a dunce cap and paraded through the streets. Just as I was about to refuse, the old lady suddenly dropped to her knees on the street with a thud. She wailed that her family background was bad. All their belongings had been smashed. Only this precious heirloom remained. If she couldn't trade it for food, her little grandson would starve tomorrow. This was clearly emotional blackmail. But I'm soft-hearted. Can't stand seeing people kowtow. So I went to help her up. But when I looked up, passers-by were pointing at me and cursing loudly. Obviously, they thought I was an unfilial grandson driving his own grandmother to her death. This was outright coercive trading. Seeing that any more delay would cause big trouble, I could only sigh deeply and agreed to trade for the jade pendant. Overjoyed by the sudden turn, the old lady, legs trembling, was about to kowtow again. I couldn't handle it, so I gave a bitter smile and threatened her. "Kowtow again, and I won't trade." The old woman was taken aback. Then she scrambled up from the ground, as stealthy as a thief. She shoved the white jade guanine pendant into my hand. Before leaving, she didn't forget to butter me up, calling me a living lay foam, a great person. Even said she'd come back next time she needed money. I held this hot potato guanine jade pendant, weighted in my hand. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What kind of thanks was that? If someone caught me with this, I might even lose my head. After all this coercive trading, my mood was even worse than being glared at by the clerk at the supply co-op. More frustrating. You see, I worked myself to the bone for just 10 work points a day. These 5 yuan plus 2 jin of food coupons were enough to keep me bent over in the fields for a month and a half. Yet when I pushed open the door, saw Xiaoyuan and Wanbao staring at the new clothes and candy. Those sparkling eyes. All my pent-up frustration vanished in an instant. I deliberately took out the items one by one. The 2 little ones saw the little rabbit on the candy, happily laughing while covering their mouths tightly. They were small but clever, afraid that laughing out loud would be heard by the neighbors and cause trouble. Then, I quickly helped them change into new clothes, stuffed a piece of milk candy into each of their mouths. Only then did I turn to light the stove and cook. Now Xiaoyuan and Wanbao's stomachs had stopped running. As soon as they smelled the smoke from the stove, they craved meat like crazy. Are we really going to eat meat this time? Last night I dreamed that grandma stole the meat. My heart ached. I picked up one in each arm, clenching my teeth. I swore, brother, no one will ever take our family's meat again. But I knew in my heart, frying it openly would be way too conspicuous. So I took the meat I had cooked yesterday and not touched, sliced it into evenly thick pieces, layered boiled eggs at the bottom of the bowl, put it directly in the steamer. This time I really went all out. Not only did I sprinkle the newly bought 13 spice, but also drizzled plenty of soy sauce and MSG, accompanied by the steaming aroma. The 2 little ones, with the big meat buns I brought back from the state-run restaurant, stuffed their cheeks like little squirrels, because I had already eaten my fill at the state-run restaurant. Now I could only prop up my chin and watch them feast. Thinking back to before we split the household, Bai Yulan and Feng Pingzi used to eat meat behind our backs. They didn't get a single bite. If they even looked too long, they'd be scolded as greedy. Now living with me, every day, plenty of big meat buns. Eat as much as they want. No longer have to kowtow to those beasts. After eating and drinking, I was about to clear the dishes, but Xiaoyuan, that clever little rascal, directly swept up the leftover candy wrappers and melon seed shells, all into the stove pit. A single fire burned them completely clean. After disposing of the evidence, I grabbed a bucket and strolled straight to the river. I was thinking of catching some crayfish. If I could also get a turtle, that would be perfect. Who knew I'd be incredibly lucky? In no time, I had a full bucket of crayfish. But after all that effort, I didn't even see a shadow of a turtle. Just as I was feeling reluctant, preparing to try my luck on the other side of the river, I looked up and ran into Wu Daqing walking back with Wu Jinbao. When I saw clearly what he was carrying, I immediately cursed under my breath. That was a big turtle. Its size looked half a gene bigger than the one I caught yesterday. There were only so few turtles in this river. How come he caught one? Just then, Jinbao stared at the turtle, drooling. I want to eat meat too. But Wu Daqing viciously scared him. Kid, if you eat turtle, your butt won't grow hair. You won't get a wife later. You're only allowed soup. All the meat is mine. Although Jinbao didn't understand what no wife meant, but under his big brother's tyranny, he could only swallow his saliva in frustration. At that moment, Uncle Wu passed by, saw my bucket full of crayfish, burst out laughing, pointed at my nose and mocked me wildly. I thought you had skills to support your siblings. Turns out you're feeding them chicken feed. I couldn't be bothered with this fool. I turned to leave with the bucket. Unexpectedly, Wu Daqing rushed over like a mad dog to block me, demanded arrogantly, "Did you send the educated youth Lu Siming home last night? What's it to you?" Now Wu Daqing felt humiliated, stammered a warning, "Don't. A toad lusting after a swan. Lu Siming would never fancy you." My mind was full of how to trick him out of his turtle. I gave him a cold look, tossed out, finished, and walked off, leaving him standing there, face red, stamping his feet in embarrassment. As luck would have it, no sooner had I entered the yard than Wu Daqing returned to the next door. But that bastard's mind was not at home, except during meals. He ran off to the educated youth point at every opportunity. I watched him throw the turtle into the water basin in the yard. Lu Jinbao was alone guarding it. An idea struck me. I beckoned to Jinbao. The little guy still remembered this morning's grudge, but couldn't resist the milk candy in my pocket. He came over clumsily. "Give me the turtle." Jinbao shook his head in fear. "That's my brother's. I dare not touch it." I snorted dismissively, directly exposed Wu Daqing's lies. "Anyway, your brother won't let you have a single bite. Just pretend you didn't see it. I'll trade you 3 white rabbit candies for it." I didn't expect the kid to not be immediately taken in. He just blinked his eyes, staring intently at the candy in my pocket. I let out a snicker, took out 2 more pieces, making it 5 in total. I thumped my chest and said, "These were meant for Xiaoyuan and Wanbao. But I'm giving them all to you. Pretty generous, huh?" Hearing the count go up to 5, Jinbao's cravings instantly exploded. He spun around and ran back, grabbed the turtle from the basin. But this kid, he was even craftier than the clerk at the supply coop. First, I held the 5 white rabbit candies in my hand, waved them in front of his eyes as a feint, but didn't let go right away. Instead, I warned him fiercely, "No matter who asks later, you absolutely cannot rat me out." Jinbao stared at the candies, his eyes glowing green, drooling as he nodded frantically. I was very pleased with his greedy look. I casually added another empty promise. "Just don't spill the beans this time, and I'll reward you with 2 more later." "Find more." The words had barely left my mouth when Jinbao snatched the candies, shoved the turtle into my hands, and then scampered over to the cesspit, madly stuffing candy into his mouth. Then the kid casually tossed all the wrappers into the pit, picked up a stick, and carefully stirred the mess. Having this many cunning schemes in a kid like him is such a waste. Not long after, Before I could even wipe the mud off my pant legs, I carried the turtle and a basket full of crawfish and swaggered over to Old Wong's stall. But Old Wong saw me and slapped his thigh in panic, asking why I was so late. My heart sank, thinking something had gone wrong. But then he grinned and said, "The crawfish from yesterday wasn't nearly enough." Hearing this, I was overjoyed inside. I casually showed him the turtle. Once Old Wong saw it, he was so happy his eyes disappeared. After eating the turtle eggs I brought last night, he'd been in high spirits all along. Now with a real turtle, he was even more confident. Then, without another word, he pulled out a thick stack of cash. "I'll give you 2,000 for the turtle. Crawfish, 2,500 on the scale. For 1,500 in cash," heavy, was pressed into my hand. Old Wong casually advised me to buy a phone. Mobile payments are so convenient these days, but as cheap as future phones get. Without an ID from this era, it's just a useless brick in my hands. I could only give a sheepish laugh, saying I'd wait until I saved a bit more. Then I fixed my eyes on his digital scale. I copied him and tapped the scale a couple of times, then shamelessly asked how much he'd sell it for. Old Wong waved his hand. "I have a backup one. Take this one for free." I kept waving my hands, insisting on buying it. But he stubbornly set a condition, "As long as you promise never to sell crawfish to anyone else, the scale isn't wasted." I immediately agreed with a laugh, and followed him to learn how to press those unfamiliar buttons. Once I figured out the digital scale's tricks, I headed straight for the big supermarket. This time, I confidently pushed a shopping cart, and left my basket and scale at the customer service desk. But what I never expected was that the supermarket today was absolutely packed. Several security guards were squeezed in the crowd, sweating profusely as they tried to keep order. But their shouts were instantly drowned out by the noisy crowd. I asked around and found out that today was the store's anniversary. Everything was on a crazy 12% off sale. In my past knowledge, I only knew about National Day, never heard of any store anniversary. Just then, a man nearby urged his wife to hurry and buy rice. "Hurry and buy rice. It'll all be gone if you're late." I didn't catch everything, but the words "all gone" instantly stung my nerves. I had nearly 6,000 in my pocket, a huge fortune. If I didn't spend it, it would just be waste paper. Half an hour later, I was drenched in sweat from pushing through, carrying 300 jin of rice and 50 jin of dried noodles, fighting my way out of the supermarket. When I hauled that mountain back to the backyard, its weight nearly crushed my back. Xiao Yuan looked at my sweaty self, was silent for a long time, then finally blurted out, "I'll never say I'm hungry again." Seeing his suspicious look, my heart suddenly ached. I knew this little guy must think I stole it all. I could only weakly explain that I got it fairly. Absolutely not stolen. So much grain wouldn't be safe in the big cabinet, so I had to hide it in the storage shed first. I casually asked about the neighbors. "How are things next door?" Wu Daqing found out the turtle was missing, and it was Jin Bao who did it. He even slapped him twice. But then Grandma doted on her grandson, chased Wu Daqing all around the yard, causing a huge ruckus. I quickly asked if Jin Bao had blabbed anything. Learning he kept the secret, I was quite satisfied with the 5 white rabbit candies as hush money. After a short rest, I decided to use today's last chance to cross the 2 worlds. These few trips to the future, I've discovered a magical profession called rider. Even if you're too lazy to leave your door, they can bring food and drinks right to your mouth. This instantly gave me a huge inspiration. Since Bai Yulan is constantly staring at my chimney, and her and Yo Danyang's noses are as sharp as dogs, why not just buy all 3 meals ready-made from the future? I have 3 round trips every day anyway. Plenty of room to maneuver. Just as I pushed open the back gate to cross over, Xiao Yuan rushed over with a serious face, insisting on coming along. "I want to go with you." I ruffled her hair, told her to stay home and take care of Nguan Bao, and cover for me. That way, no one will find out I'm getting food. Hearing that she had an important job, Xiao Yuan immediately beamed, showing 2 little fangs, whitened by future toothpaste, sparkling white. After laying out the task, in a flash, I stepped back onto the future street. This time, I took my time. First, I grabbed 2 cups of milk tea from the shop, then cleared out the skewer stall. Grilled pig feet, crispy pork, giant chicken drumsticks. I packed it all. Who would have thought that this shabby basket of mine, once only fit for wild greens, now was stuffed with mouth-watering delicacies? However, just as I was carrying the fragrant basket past the supermarket entrance, a loud bang suddenly came from the street. Then, a piercing scream tore through the sky. Everyone turned in horror, and saw at a cold drink stand by the roadside. A little girl was holding her just-bought milk tea. A runaway tricycle, like a raging bull, was hurtling straight toward her. The disabled driver's face was full of panic, but it was too late to turn the wheel. The agile adults around had already scattered in fear, leaving only the little girl frozen in place. Only that little girl, who looked only 7 or 8, was pinned under the wheel. The cold drink vendor and the driver were stunned. One ran around like a headless fly looking for her parents. The other dropped to his knees, wailing, shouting that he had no money. However, neither of them even thought to help her first. What I found even more incomprehensible was the crowd of onlookers, each holding up their phones, all heartlessly filming videos. They all held up their phones high, and were cold-heartedly filming videos. This utterly bizarre atmosphere stunned me into a daze. Worst off was the little girl. The heavy wool pinned her neck. She was about to breathe her last. Seeing that, rage boiled inside me. I plunged into the crowd. A blonde guy held his phone closest. The lens almost touched her head. Without a word, I punched him square in the face. I roared, "The hell are you filming?" Then, I whipped around, eyes bloodshot, shouting at the crowd, "Quick, lift the tricycle." At that, a few people finally snapped out of it and came to help. Everyone scrambled, and we managed to pull the girl out from under the wheel. But then, the hit-and-run driver tried to slip away in the chaos. I grabbed his collar and held tight. I yelled at the top of my lungs. Everyone, take a picture of his face. Running? No way. The driver was scared stiff and froze in place. Thankfully, I acted in time. The little girl's last breath finally came back, but the wheel had crushed her neck, deadly. She was still barely alive. I'd learned some basic medicine from the village barefoot doctor. Checked her pulse. She could still be saved. At that moment, the time travel countdown in my head was ticking down second by second. I still had a ton to do here, but the next second, I couldn't care less. I scooped up the little girl and dashed down the street like a madman, looking at her pale little face. Only one thought consumed me. If it were my little sister hit today, I'd beg someone to lend a hand. Soon, I ran by memory and finally found the hospital I'd been to early that morning. Thank goodness I'd already been through a visit. Doctors and nurses had me running around like crazy, but I managed, danger barely averted, to push the girl through the emergency room doors. But everything in the hospital costs money. In no time, I'd spent my freshly earned 6,000 yuan fortune. Every last cent. The rescue was still underway inside, tense. But the nurse outside kept eyeing me, pressing for more fees. The tricycle driver who'd caused the accident had honestly followed me here. But the killer was. He searched himself high and low and couldn't produce a single cent. Just as I was sweating buckets, into the hospital lobby burst a stunningly beautiful woman. Her face was streaked with tears, pale as death. Like a mad woman, she screamed desperately, "Doctor!" Was a little girl from a car accident brought in just now? Hearing that heart-wrenching voice, I spun around, and the moment I saw her face, my pupils contracted sharply. It was Lin Liwei, in the hospital lobby. The beautiful Lin Liwei was crying, ashen-faced, madly searching for her daughter in the accident. Just then, she looked up, never expecting that the hero who saved her daughter was the poor guy from 2 days ago in the supermarket, elbowing through the crowd with 300 pounds of rice. Even more unbelievable, a nurse was loudly demanding payment. Not only had I saved the child, I'd even quietly fronted the full 6,000 yuan medical bill. Lin Liwei felt the sky fall, dazed and confused. Clutching the payment slip, she had no idea where to go. Learning she was a single mother, I decisively led her through various windows, but the lines were terribly long. Then, some people ahead started cursing each other over queue jumping. The once orderly line instantly fell into chaos. At that moment, cold sweat trickled down my back. The time travel countdown in my head now showed only 5 minutes left. Damn, once it hit 0, I'd be forcefully dragged back to my own era. Cece's life couldn't wait any longer. At this critical moment, I spotted a self-service payment machine nearby. I was completely unfamiliar with modern devices, but I braced myself and rushed over. My palm, gripping the payment card, was soaked in sweat. As seconds ticked by, just as the countdown hit 0, a flash of white light suddenly crossed my vision. A loading progress bar appeared where the countdown had been, until it reached 100%. In my mind, an extra 23 hours of countdown had appeared. Congratulations, host. Mission complete. Upgrade, to World Gate. Reward, stay in the future world. Single duration, 24 hours. I thought there'd be other missions, but nothing happened after waiting. Then, relieved that Xuanli's surgery went smoothly, Lin Liwei returned the money to me. She grabbed my hand tightly, thanking me over and over. Soon, the traffic police arrived. The disabled driver who'd caused the crash looked ashen, tottering there, playing the victim. Not only couldn't he afford the tens of thousands in rescue fees, but when the cops searched him, they found only 150 yuan total. But Lin Liwei showed no mercy. She refused to be guilt-tripped. She firmly handed him over to the law. Poverty is no excuse for breaking the law. After the police left, I was worried about Lin Liwei bearing it all alone. I decided to stay with her for over an hour. Cece, still unconscious, finally regained a flicker of awareness. But the little girl was burning with fever and kept mumbling in a daze, "I want daddy." Ding. Host triggered a random mission. 3 options popped up before me. Option 1. Temporarily play the role of Cece's father. Reward, folding electric scooter. Option 2. Reveal the truth. Say she was abandoned. Reward, master-level fishing rod. Option 3. Directly tell her feelings. I want to marry your mom and be your dad. Reward, a super-capacity 2-world storage warehouse. This giant warehouse, in my era, could absolutely save my life. As I was calculating, Lin Liwei suddenly grabbed my hand. Her eyes were red, her hands trembling. "Daddy is here, Cece. Daddy is here." The unconscious Cece's little hand tightly gripped mine. She kept mumbling she wanted her daddy. I hesitated, then decided to go with the flow. Patiently, I coaxed her, line by line, to take good care of her mom. Watching me, a 19-year-old, struggling to play father, Lin Liwei's eyes welled up. After finally getting the child to sleep, Lin Liwei was overwhelmed with gratitude. She quickly asked for my phone number and WeChat, wanting to visit and thank me after her daughter was discharged. But I scratched my head awkwardly. I didn't have any of that stuff. I didn't even have a fixed place to live. Lin Liwei noticed my embarrassment and stopped pressing. She just left her own number. Then, remembering my crazy rice hoarding over the past 2 days, she couldn't help but ask curiously. This time I didn't hide it. I met her gaze honestly. To sell back home. Rice is scarce in my hometown. I'll buy rice from the supermarket to resell there. Hearing that, Lin Liwei immediately decided to introduce me to an internal grain and oil distributor. Not only could I get the supermarket's supply-based price, but they could even deliver directly. This was like a pie falling from the sky for me, but problems kept coming. Cece was still in the hospital. I couldn't exactly pile tons of rice in the ward, so I hurriedly said goodbye to Lin Liwei, thinking I had to rent a ground floor apartment right away. After all, According to the two-world gate rules, as long as I had a fixed residence, I could travel through time and space anytime, and it wouldn't be easy to get caught. Then I walked to the nurse station on the first floor, ready to retrieve the basket I'd left behind to save someone. But just then, a sharp-eyed young nurse suddenly stared at her, her pretty little mouth wide enough to swallow a whole cucumber. She grabbed my collar and held on tight. I found him. Someone come quick. Don't let him get away. An exaggerated scream instantly set off the whole corridor. Then several nurses rushed out of the station, some grabbing my arms, some pressing my legs, and they pinned me to the ground on the spot. Just then the ward door burst open. Lilio looked at me pinned underneath and laughed loudly, hands on her hips, her eyes full of triumph. Humph. You tried to sneak past my ward, dressed like this. Such a loser. You think I didn't see? I looked at my old vest, washed till it was threadbare, my face full of tears unshed. Just as I was shouting my innocence, a low voice suddenly came from deep in the corridor. Leo, no more nonsense. I struggled to lift my head. I never expected. The person coming was the old man I'd saved at dawn, Zhang Weiman. Leo instantly deflated like a punctured ball, dutifully called out, great-grandfather. Hearing that title, a clue suddenly clicked in my mind. Leo was Zhang Ximei's granddaughter. Then this old chief. Couldn't he be Wu Yunfang's husband? The nurses were completely dumbfounded. They quickly pulled me up from the floor. A pair of soft, fair hands kept brushing the dust off me, and I, who had hardly ever been touched by a girl, was turned bright red. Then Zhang Weiman invited me into the VIP ward, meeting his savior again. The old chief was deeply moved. He kept praising me as a good young man who only did good deeds. As we chatted, Zhang Weiman suddenly asked about the ages of my younger siblings. One is 7, the other is 2. Hearing those numbers, Zhang Weiman's eyes instantly reddened. Back then, the younger siblings left behind by Wu Daqing, who died saving him, were exactly the same ages. Then looking at the face before him, 99% similar. A storm raged in the old chief's heart. Could it really be that Wu Daqing had been reborn? Zhang Weiman let out a long breath. He turned and told Li Leo to bring out a heavy package. Open it. Look, inside were 10,000 yuan in crisp new red bills. I immediately waved my hands, directly invoking the Lei Feng's spirit, and firmly refused. Li Leo saw the two of them deadlocked, and in a rush grabbed the money and shoved it into my arms. But in that tussle, something from my pocket suddenly flew out. With a smack, a white jade guanine pendant hit the non-slip plastic floor hard. Li Leo picked it up and looked at it. Her eyes went wide. Wow, this thing is old. It must be worth a lot. Where did you get it? I had no idea about market prices. I scratched my head with a simple smile. An old lady forced it on me. I just traded some rice for it. Rice? Li Leo heard that, and was completely shaken to her core. Seeing how unconcerned I was, Zhang Weiman immediately frowned. Right then, he told his great-granddaughter to contact her antique-collecting best friend, Shen Qingli. Li Leo quickly snapped a photo and sent it. Just 1 minute later, Shen Qingli's video call popped up directly. The pretty girl on the screen had just seen the pendant clearly, when she let out a piercing scream. Li Leo, you're about to get rich. Just the quality of this jade alone, conservatively estimated, is at least a few million. And that's not all. There's definitely something hidden inside this jade. What's really valuable is what's inside. Learning it belonged to her savior. Shen Qingli shouted excitedly on the screen. Little brother is so handsome. You guys, don't let him get away. I'll bring my grandfather over to find you right now. Then she hung up quickly. Li Leo hugged me excitedly, jumping up and down. You're about to be rich. I was dizzy from the shaking. I hadn't had much schooling. I simply couldn't believe such a windfall could fall from the sky. At that moment, my mind was only on my younger siblings alone at home. But just then, at the hospital entrance, a series of sharp police sirens suddenly sounded. Before anyone could react, Shen Qingli came bursting into the ward with a white-haired old man and several police officers. She shielded Li Leo, then turned and pointed angrily at me. Officers, he's the thief who stole the museum's treasure. I stood frozen in place. Li Leo argued loudly, insisting he was her great-grandfather's savior. But Shen Qingli gritted her teeth. Don't be fooled by his honest looks. My grandfather has been searching for this artifact for days and nights without sleep. The next second, several police officers stepped forward and clamped down on my arms. Just as I was about to explain, the white-haired appraisal expert Shun Guoxing beside her reached out and took the jade pendant. He took one look and immediately exclaimed, "Oh my God, isn't this the jade I've been searching for all this time?" Hearing that, the police officers were even more determined to take me away. But unexpectedly, Shun Guoxing suddenly caught himself. He waved his hands repeatedly. "Officers, this is a huge misunderstanding," he said excitedly. "Though it looks exactly the same, this is definitely not the one stolen from the museum." The police stared hard at the pendant, unable to believe it. To prove its authenticity, Shen Guoxing picked up the bottled water from the coffee table. He unscrewed the cap, and without hesitation poured the water over the white jade guanine pendant. Time ticked by. After a full 5 minutes, the pendant showed no change. Shen Guoxing explained. The true national treasure jade would bloom with lotuses all over its surface when wet. Only then did the police quickly unlock the handcuffs and let me go. My heart felt like it was on a roller coaster. In this era, if I were arrested as an enemy spy, I couldn't even produce a clean identity. Now I was full of suspicion. I couldn't help but ask, how did you see through it at a glance? My eyes are the ruler. Then he took off his glasses and kept wiping away tears. This jade is a replica made by my mentor. Back in those special years, a friend's wife traded this treasure for just a few bowls of rice to save their lives. Hearing it was only a replica, Li Leo's eyes immediately filled with disappointment. But Shen Guosheng quickly shook his head in denial. How could it not be valuable? Even if it's just a Republic-era replica, this is still top-grade mutton fat white jade. Selling it for 7 or 800,000 is no problem at all. 7 or 800,000. I was utterly stunned by that astronomical figure. Thinking back to how I'd gotten it for just 5 yuan, plus 2 jin of food coupons, my heart felt. Shen Guosheng then said with sincerity, I'll pay 1 million to buy it. I really felt embarrassed and wanted to give it for free. But Li Liu and Zhang Weiman stopped me firmly. In the end, we reached a quick agreement. 3 days later, with 1 million in cash. The transaction would take place at the old chief's home. Before long, night fell. I said goodbye to everyone and left the hospital. It suddenly hit me that I had just completed a side quest. And not only that, on the system interface, a yellow cursor had been flashing frantically. A yellow cursor is flashing frantically. Tapped it open casually. In his ear, a string of crisp gold coin drops instantly sounded. Congratulations, host, for completing the side quest. Reward, 1 electric bicycle. It has been parked in the 2 World Gate parking lot. In the middle of the night, as soon as I got home, I suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. I saw Wu Daqing sneaking around, prowling on my courtyard wall. Inside, Xiaoyuan and Yuan Bao were scared, curling up. They didn't dare close their eyes at all. Only after I asked did I understand. This kid. Suspects I've hidden old Ji's treasure in the house. Thinking of those future supplies in the house that must stay hidden. Now I couldn't sleep at all. That night, I frantically dug a trench over a foot deep around the courtyard wall. Then, I also sharpened all the bamboo poles used for bean trellises. Stuck them upright into the trench, one by one. Anyone who didn't know would think I was burying a corpse. The commotion I made by Yulan next door angrily cursed Psycho from under her covers. But Wu Daqing was sure something fishy was going on. He barely waited until I turned off the lights. He immediately climbed up along the courtyard wall. Who knew that just as he just poked his head out? In the pitch-black courtyard, my cold voice suddenly sounded. Make sure you aim before you jump. I suddenly switched on the flashlight. The beam first swept across Wu Daqing's face, then directly shone on the trench below. Wu Daqing looked at the rows of sharpened bamboo poles. His face instantly turned pale with fear. He trembled, cold sweat pouring out. Yet he still questioned me with a tone of self-righteousness. Who the hell sets up this kind of thing in their yard? I didn't waste a word with him. Today I put up trellis poles. Tomorrow I'll switch to knives. As long as you dare to jump down, you'll be skewered like a candied hawthorn. Wu Daqing on the wall top was so dizzy he swayed. He forced himself to be glib, saying he just wanted to see Xiaoyuan and Yuan Bao. I was so pissed I laughed. Told him to figure out whether to jump in or jump out. Seeing all the sharp spikes below, Wu Daqing completely chickened out. He prepared to back down. He shivered and asked me to shine some light for him, who knew I'd give a cold laugh, and suddenly turned the flashlight beam around, straight from under my own chin upward, shining a ghastly, demonic face. Wu Daqing was so scared he lost control on the spot, and fell backward heavily off the courtyard wall. He flew into a rage and cursed loudly outside the gate, threatening to bring the brigade leader tomorrow to search the house. With that shout, all the dogs in the brigade started barking wildly. The more I thought, the more alarmed I felt. Taking advantage that it wasn't dawn yet, I secretly carried 300 jin of rice and 50 jin of dried noodles on my back, sneaked out of the village, and followed the address to a warehouse on the outskirts. Waited for Tian Xiaowu, who reeked of alcohol. Turns out, as soon as Tian Xiaowu clearly saw the packaging on the rice bag, he was instantly more than half sober. He stared intently at the words on it. Northeast Rice, production address, phone 131. Hearing those words, my heart suddenly skipped a beat. I came too hastily. I actually forgot to change the packaging from the future world. At that critical moment, I quickly coughed dryly. To interrupt him, these are special supplies from the foreign goods store sold to foreigners. If others see, we'll both get shot. Tian Xiaowu suddenly understood, and quickly found a roll of plastic woven bags, and repacked everything. Transaction complete. I smoothly got 70 yuan. But after handing over the money, Tian Xiaowu looked worried. My heart sank. I pressed, asking if they couldn't sell it. It turned out that Qingming festival was approaching, and the factory workers were all hoping for egg rations. Now all the pressure fell on Tian Xiaowu's father. He had no idea where to get so many goods. Tian Xiaowu grabbed onto me like a lifeline, staring at me fixedly, asking if I could get eggs. I hadn't slept well last night, and my brain malfunctioned, so I casually said I couldn't haul them. Unexpectedly, Tian Xiaowu shouted excitedly, openly saying he could get his dad to bring a truck to haul them. Hearing this, I instantly broke out in a cold sweat on my back. This kid, surely he doesn't want to catch both me and the goods in one net? Just as I thought this was entrapment, 3 system options suddenly popped up in front of me. Option 1, punch Tian Xiaowu directly. Option 2, go to the Commune to report him for speculation and profiteering. These 2 were undoubtedly digging my own grave. However, when I saw the third option, I gasped. As long as I told Tian Xiaowu I could get 1 ton of eggs, I would be rewarded with a 2-world time space, a huge warehouse that could be accessed anytime. To me, this was a deadly temptation. With this space, I would never have to transport supplies like a thief anymore, in constant fear. Even though I didn't know how terrifying a ton actually was, I had to steel myself and go for it. My face red, I patted my chest, and said, Xiaowu, to be honest, it's not just a few eggs. If you want a ton, I can get it. After hearing this, Tian Xiaowu gasped, waved his hands repeatedly, saying a ton wasn't needed. Just 2,000 jin would be enough to make the deal. As soon as he finished, in my mind, a wildly flashing yellow cursor suddenly lit up. I suppressed my ecstasy and parted with Tian Xiaowu, found a quiet corner, and immediately tapped the cursor. The next second, in my palm, a completely ordinary key appeared out of thin air, and this was the key that could connect 2 time spaces. The top secret warehouse key. As long as you have the right to use a house, you can insert the 2-world gate key into it. This meant I no longer had to risk physically moving supplies. As long as I stored them in this time space, I could take them out at will in the other time space. I gripped the key tightly, studied the instructions 3 times before daring to confirm. Then I sprinted all the way home, and impatiently aimed at my own storage shed. I took a deep breath, and trembling, inserted the key into the lock. A clicking sound, and the storage shed door was actually opened by the 2-world gate key. But what appeared before me was no longer the small dark room piled with clutter, but a deep, empty warehouse. Now I was so excited I saw stars. Without another word, I directly took the supplies locked in a cabinet and moved them all into the 2-world gate warehouse at once. To be safe, I even had Xiaoyuan come in to confirm, and found that except for me, no one else could see what was inside the 2-world gate. Only then did my heart finally settle. After all this, I was already exhausted, collapsing on the calm. But at that moment, a countdown suddenly jumped into my mind. It turned out that whenever I returned from the future world, I had to wait a full 24 hours before I could open the 2-world gate again. This was definitely a huge trap. Single stay time became longer, but I lost the previous flexibility. Then what about the supplies I promised old Wang? And my promise to go to the hospital to see Cici? How could I fulfill them? But the new rules left me no room to resist. Having stayed up 2 nights straight, I couldn't take it anymore. I told Xiaoyuan and Wan Bao there was meat in the basket to eat, then pulled the quilt over my head and fell asleep. Chicken legs, pork trotters, and roasted belly pork gave off a tempting aroma. 2-year-old Wan Bao drooled with craving, just about to cheer out loud, when she looked up and met Xiaoyuan's stern gaze, and was so scared she immediately stifled the sound. After eating the meat, Xiaoyuan, like an adult, cleaned up the battlefield spotlessly. Then he took his little sister out to play. This time I slept straight until sunset. The countdown in my mind clearly showed I had slept a full 7 hours. I abruptly sat up and shouted twice at the top of my lungs. But inside and outside the house, it was dead silent. Xiaoyuan and Wan Bao were nowhere to be seen. I panicked instantly, rushed into the street, screaming like a madman. Bai Yulan, irritated by the noise, cursed viciously. Good riddance if they're lost. My eyes bloodshot. Xiaoyuan, if Wan Bao is really lost, I'll make your Jin Bao pay with his life. Bai Yulan trembled in fear, hastily shut her mouth, sulking. I knew it as clear as day. Xiaoyuan taking his little sister. There's no way he'd stay out this long. They must be in danger. At that very moment, village chief Wu Daqing hurried over with a group of men. Before I could explain, the educated youth Lu Siming ran up, out of breath, his face pale. Xiaoyuan seems to have taken Wan Bao into the mountains. Into the mountains? My head exploded with a loud buzz. Lu Siming quickly added. I heard Wu Daqing muttering earlier. I saw Xiaoyuan heading into the mountains with a basket on his back. I rushed back inside like a madman. The sickle and basket he usually takes up the mountain. Sure enough, both were gone. Even an idiot could figure it out. Xiaoyuan must have felt sorry for me being so exhausted. He wanted to go dig wild greens for me. Just then, Wu Daqing was sauntered over to watch the commotion, his face full of mockery. Sneered that both kids were clever. They'd never get lost. I walked up to him with a blank face. Suddenly, I swung my arm with full force and slapped Wu Daqing hard across the face. Kids that young going into the mountains. And you didn't even come to help. Wu Daqing was terrified. He rushed over and grabbed Wu Daqing firmly. Covering his face, he cursed me as a crazy donkey. But the next second, I grabbed his collar in a tight grip. Like a furious beast, I roared wildly. Tell me which path they took into the mountains. If I don't find them today, I'll carve up your face with a knife. Wu Daqing immediately called a few strong men. Follow me into the mountains to search and rescue. I sprinted all the way. Cold sweat instantly soaked my chest. I never expected. Just as I reached the village entrance, I ran into a small, staggering figure moving toward the village. It was Wan Bao. I fell to my knees with a thud, roughly felt him from head to toe. Found that aside from his tear-streaked face, he didn't even have a scratch. Only then did the weight in my heart ease a little. But when I looked behind him, my heart plummeted into an ice cave. Wan Bao, where's your second brother? Wan Bao's little mouth puckered. He was about to burst into loud sobs. But I barked harshly, hold it in. Frightened, Wan Bao forced the tears back down. Sobbing, he pieced together what happened. It turned out that after they went into the mountains, Xiaoyuan suddenly changed his mind for some reason. He led him on a random walk. Then he simply hid him behind a rock, telling him not to make a sound. When Wan Bao woke up, he actually saw with his own eyes Xiaoyuan being taken away by a strange burly man from another village. Before leaving, Xiaoyuan secretly gestured to him. Run fast. Everyone listening drew in a sharp breath. This was definitely Xiaoyuan protecting his sister, deliberately luring the bad guy away. He made circles in the mountains by himself, but still got caught. I was frantic, eyes red. I wished I could tear that bad guy apart alive. Wu Daqing quickly declared he'd mobilize the whole village to block the roads. We must bring Xiaoyuan back. Lu Siming, heartbroken, picked up the sobbing Wan Bao and turned to take him back to the educated youth station, just as the whole village raised flashlights and torches and grabbed hoes and shovels, ready to charge into the deep mountains. At that critical moment, staggering on the mountain path, emerged a half-grown figure carrying a large basket. It was Xiaoyuan. He ran forward desperately, looking back in terror, afraid something was chasing him. Eyes red, I rushed up, grabbed his shoulders tightly. Xiaoyuan's clothes were torn to shreds. His face and arms were covered in bloody scratches. Then I looked at the basket behind him. It was stuffed full of fresh wild greens, piled high. I felt both pain and anger. For the first time in my life, I roared at him furiously. Why on earth did you take Bao into the mountains? Xiao Yuan's already pale face tightened instantly. He was so scared he didn't dare lift his head. Tears swirled in his eyes. I was so furious I was smoking. How dare you cry? Xiao Yuan, terrified, forced back his tears. Suddenly, he reached his hand into the basket full of wild greens and dug down deep. Just as everyone wondered what the boy was up to, Xiao Yuan yanked out a handful of shimmering gold. Everyone present gasped. Their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. That was no wild greens at all. It was a big handful of gold and silver rings, pearl and jade necklaces, and even a pure gold hairpin studded with red, yellow, blue, and green gems. The whole place fell into deathly silence. Even breathing stopped completely. Xiao Yuan ignored the shocked crowd. He directly raised the handful of jewels in front of the village chief. Chief, I found these in the mountains. I'm turning them over to the state. Wu Gang trembled with excitement. He stared hard at Xiao Yuan, interrogating his story. But Xiao Yuan calmly pointed to the deep mountains. He said a strange man forced him to be a guide. These gold and jewels were all the leftover junk the man didn't want. Everyone was dumbfounded. Then Xiao Yuan revealed a shocking secret. It turned out that the man who let Bao go was actually a grave robber. At that, the villagers' expressions all changed. Some went crazy with greed. Some made sour, sarcastic remarks. Are you starved, stupid? If you'd secretly sold them, how much grain could you have gotten? Facing the pointing and whispering of the whole village, Xiao Yuan stood frozen. He suddenly looked up, staring intently at me. Like a frightened kitten, he said, Brother, did I do the right thing? I didn't care about the gold or jewels. My heart and eyes were only on my little brother's safety. Does it hurt? Who knew the next second? Xiao Yuan pitifully answered, Hungry. I'm hungry. Those words broke everyone's heart. Since a tomb robber had appeared, Wu Gang dared not delay. He immediately reported to his superiors. I scooped up Xiao Yuan in my arms, turned, and went home. Now I was carrying that basket of wild greens on my back. But the basket was so heavy it pressed down on my shoulders. Just then, Xiao Yuan, asleep in my arms, suddenly muttered a sleep-talking word. Brother, there's more in the basket. I jolted all over. But Xiao Yuan only snuggled closer into my arms, refused to say another word. Only after I closed the door tightly did I truly understand the weight of that sleep talk. I flipped open the basket. Beneath a thin layer of wild greens was hidden a pair of top-grade jadeite mandarin duck bracelets. Next, an exquisitely carved wooden box. Then a pair of beautiful porcelain bowls. At the very bottom were stuffed a pair of large-bellied vases, filled with heavy ancient coins. I gasped in shock. I stared in disbelief at the pitiful-looking Xiao Yuan. But Xiao Yuan suddenly cast down his eyes. Brother, I lied to them. I'm telling you the truth. Don't hit me. We stood frozen for a good 10 seconds. Only then did I grit my teeth and tell him to speak. Who knew? Xiao Yuan's next words completely overturned my understanding. It turned out that the grave robber had long fled. When Bao woke up, what he saw was actually Xiao Yuan's back as he escorted the thief out of the mountains. To prevent the brigade leader from bringing people to arrest them, Xiao Yuan insisted on hiding with his sister in the forest, not appearing until the villagers came searching. I broke out in a cold sweat hearing this. What did you say? Xiao Yuan was scared like a turtle pulling in its head. That grave robber told me. Poor people should look out for each other, rather than let others take advantage. It's better to turn in worthless stuff to the state for rewards. Sell the valuable stuff secretly at high prices to buy grain. At this, Xiao Yuan lowered his voice. He said this is called money laundering. It can make illegal money legitimate. I instantly held my breath. This tomb raider is practically a genius. The words money laundering hit me right in the heart. The fatal weakness of making money in the future world was actually perfectly solved by a 7-year-old. This little brain turns faster than anyone. But before I could open my mouth to lecture my little brother, I suddenly noticed something off about the stuff in the room. The front door clearly wasn't locked, and the lock on the shed door had been forcibly pried. I was so scared cold sweat poured down. Thankfully, last night, I had transferred all the supplies into the two-world gate storage. Otherwise today, I'd have been stripped down to my underwear. Without another word, I shoved the whole basket of antiques into the storage. Then I pulled out a large flatbread and stuffed it to Xiao Yuan. Just at that moment, the door suddenly banged loudly. I immediately gave Xiao Yuan a look. Xiao Yuan moved extremely fast. He grabbed the flatbread and basket and hung them from the beam. I was even quicker, threw the basket, candy, and new clothes all into the space. After confirming everything was safe, I roared at the door. Who is it? From outside came slowly a woman's voice. Daqing, open the door. It's your grandma, Bai Yulan. I sneered. This old woman's heart is vicious enough. She can't even wait overnight to check things out. If I don't let her in, tomorrow the whole village will spread rumors I'm hiding national treasures. I'll see what tricks this old hag wants to play. As the wooden door opened a crack, Bai Yulan squeezed into the yard like a loach. Her shrewd, beady eyes quickly scanned around. Then she charged straight into the house. She grabbed Xiao Yuan and hugged him tightly, wailing. But Xiao Yuan, full of disgust, struggled free. Don't touch me. I killed my parents. I'm unlucky. You're so old. Don't get contaminated by me. Send her away. These were all the curses Bai Yulan usually hurled at them. Bai Yulan froze instantly. Her face was uglier than if she'd eaten a fly. She never expected this 7-year-old brat to hold such a grudge. But she had to steel herself and play deaf and dumb. Those greedy eyes, fixed on the spotless room. Just as she turned to force her way into the west room, I grabbed her firmly by the hairband. If there's nothing else, please go back. Bai Yulan was so angry her back teeth nearly ground to powder. Then her eyes rolled. her gaze locking on the locked cabinet. I'm your own grandmother. Since you're busy, I'll help you take out the rags from the cabinet and mend them. Xiao Yuan, unaware of the truth, turned pale. He clenched his fists tightly, afraid that the grain in the cabinet would be exposed by his slight expression. Bai Yulan caught it instantly. She smiled like an old fox. Daqing, from now on we're still family. Grandma will open the cabinet now. I watched her superb acting and sneered. The next second I pulled out the key directly and waved it wildly in front of Bai Yulan. I gripped the key tightly, staring coldly at the old woman opposite. You want to search my house? Fine. But you, Bai Yulan, don't have the right. Bai Yulan's eyes rolled. She waved her hands repeatedly, pretending innocence. What? Treasure? No treasure. That stuff is hot to handle. Grandma wouldn't covet it. But I wasn't buying that act. I held the key right in front of Bai Yulan's eyes and issued an ultimatum. I'll give you one last chance. If you find something, you take it all. If you find nothing, don't bother me again in the future. Now Bai Yulan couldn't pretend anymore. She lunged forward to snatch the key, but I sidestepped. Bai Yulan missed. Hands on hips, she demanded fiercely. Wu Daqing, what do you mean? What exactly do you mean? I couldn't be bothered to waste words. I turned and ordered my brother, Xiaoan, go and fetch the brigade leader and accountant Zhu. The more people, the better. Hearing this, Bai Yulan's 180 schemes spun rapidly in her mind. No, she hopped in panic, desperately blocking the door to stop Xiao Yuan from leaving. Then her eyes rolled again, revealing her true calculation. What I mean is, if we have good stuff, let's sell it on the sly. Sell for 10, give Grandma 5. Hurry, your brother Donghua is just missing a plum brand watch. After hearing this, I sneered on the spot. When it comes down to it, you're just after money. Then I deliberately raised my voice, so that the east courtyard next door could hear clearly. Let alone that Xiao Yuan turned everything over to the state. Even if he didn't, you won't get a single cent of the money from sales. As soon as these words were out, Bai Yulan's eyes turned red with rage. She was too stubborn, so she plopped down on the ground and wailed loudly. Oh my life. You're unfilial and still think you're right. Then she abruptly stopped crying. She viciously spat out a threat. If you don't hand over the stuff today, I'll report you to the Commune. Say you embezzled state assets. Ripping off socialism. Good, well said. Just then, a furious shout suddenly came from outside the yard. Bai Yulan turned sharply. Never expected that. The arrivals were Brigade Leader Wu Gang and Accountant Zhu. Behind them followed a large crowd of villagers eager to watch the drama. It turned out the brigade saw that we 3 poor kids were having a hard time, and specially approved a subsidy of 100 caddies of rice. At this moment, they happened to catch Bai Yulan forcing her grandson to hand over treasures. I reacted quickly to this scene. I took the opportunity to squat in the corner, looking wronged. Uncles, you've come just in time. My grandma insists I'm hiding state property. Please help my grandma search the house. Seeing the 100 caddies of gleaming white rice, Bai Yulan's eyes practically shone. She immediately put on the airs of an elder, busily serving water and tea. But Wu Gang had long seen through this old woman's tricks. Aunt, no need to fuss. Searching the house? The kid has had a long day. You should head back now. This was clearly giving Bai Yulan a way out. Bai Yulan was shrewd. She took the hint and wanted to leave. But how could I let her off so easily? Don't go. We have to search today. Search thoroughly in front of everyone, so no one can gossip behind our backs. Then I mercilessly exposed her real intentions. She was just about to report me to the Commune. She even forced me to pay for a plum watch for Donghua. If we don't clear this up today, tomorrow who knows who will snatch this rice. Bai Yulan's face instantly turned red with anger. After Wu Gang heard this, he frowned deeply. He immediately called a few villagers to search the house. Without a word, I unlocked the cabinet, took out all our belongings. The result was predictable, apart from a few broken bowls and rags. The rice sack was empty. Even the basket hanging from the beam, when taken down, was so poor that even a rat would cry and leave. The only thing in the whole house that could count as valuable was the 2 eggs given by the brigade leader's wife the day before. Seeing this miserable sight, everyone present felt sorry for me. Bai Yulan, seeing her scheme exposed, gave a dry laugh and tried to slip away. Wait. Just then, Wu Gang, with a cold face, barked sternly. The matter of hiding stuff is settled. Today, in front of everyone. Let's also sort out the matter of supporting you. Then he immediately sent someone to fetch Wu Laogui next door, who had been playing deaf and dumb, and dragged them all into the yard. Even Nguyen Bao from the educated youth camp and Aunt Nyo, who was watching the excitement, all hurried over. Wu Laogui squatted by the wall, just puffing on his pipe, head down. Wu Gang stared coldly at Bai Yulan, his face like ice. Let Dying and Xiao Yuan show you both some filial piety. Even if they're not there, the gifts will be. What do you say? That was a deeply sarcastic probe, but who knew Bai Yulan would straighten her back? Nodding eagerly. That works. But don't you try to cheat us. Dragon Boat Festival, Mid-Autumn Festival, New Year's, plus our old couple's birthdays. At least $5 each time. As soon as those words left her mouth, dead silence fell over the crowd. Then the whole place exploded. All year long, the whole family breaks their backs and barely saves a few cents. And this old hag dares to ask for so much? Aunt Nyo was furious, cursing. Her sons are gone, and she still shamelessly squeezes blood money from her grandsons. Everyone joined in, condemning Bai Yulan for going too far. Wu Gang's face turned livid with rage. Why don't you just sell these 3 kids outright? But Bai Yulan, brazen as ever, lifted her chin. Didn't you tell me to name my terms? Wu Gang turned and stared hard at Wu Laogui. Yet the old man just puffed heavily on his pipe, passing the buck outright. Don't ask me. Work it out with the kids. Then Wu Gang had no choice but to look at me. At that moment, I saw everyone backing me up, and I already had a plan in mind. Once we've agreed, we'll put it in writing. Even if I have to borrow on an IOU. I'll make up the gifts for grandparents. Everyone present nodded in approval. Then Wu Gang announced the rules on the spot. New Year's, $3. Dragon Boat Festival, mid-autumn, and Uncle Lague's birthday, $2 each. You okay with that? But when Bai Yulan heard this, she immediately panicked. What about my birthday? Wu Gang didn't even lift his eyelids. I heard the old auntie was picked up from the road. When have you ever celebrated a birthday? Bai Yulan's face turned deathly pale with rage. Aunt Nyo snorted with laughter on the spot. Have you ever celebrated Daqing or Xiaoyuan's birthdays? Donghua and Jinbao always get eggs on their birthdays. Bai Yulan's mouth went dry, and for a long time she couldn't squeeze out a single word. Without a second thought, I made the final call. $9 a year. I'll pay it. And right then, Accountant Zhu had already drafted the agreement clearly. Bai Yulan clutched the document, staring at it hard. She was thinking about that 100 gene of rice. Terrified the cash in hand would slip away. She didn't dare make a peep. Wu Gang, thoroughly annoyed, urged her directly. Stop staring. You can't read anyway. Have Donghua read it to you later. So Bai Yulan pressed her red ink pad and stamped her thumbprint. Everyone else signed and sealed in turn. It dragged on until late at night. The crowd finally dispersed. As she left, Bai Yulan kept glaring at those bags of rice. Next, I immediately shut the door and lit the fire to cook. This time, with the brigade's reward as cover. I didn't have to sneak around cooking. I turned around and from the future world, pulled out pig trotters and a pistol, and heated them up in the pot. For the first time, the three of us ate till our mouths dripped with grease. Early the next morning, before dawn, I quietly went to the portal warehouse and filled 5 whole bags of rice. In the blink of an eye, I pedaled my bike openly straight into town, passing villagers on the road. I deliberately announced loudly that the team was distributing rice. I'm going to town to trade it for cash. But as soon as I reached the town, I immediately sensed something was wrong. The little old lady patrols on the street, their eyes hooked onto the rice like fishhooks. To avoid being made an example, I decisively pedaled straight to the military factory compound to find Tian Xiaowu. But just as I reached the gate, the guard stopped me and asked. At that critical moment, a few women suddenly walked out of the compound. Leading them was the cadre's wife, Wu Yunfang. Daqing, what a coincidence. Wu Yunfang greeted me warmly. She knew the guard was giving me a hard time, so she immediately turned and admonished him. Old Zhou, this is my relative. The guard broke out in a cold sweat. Then Wu Yunfang personally led me into the yard. She leaned in and whispered, perfect timing. My 2 friends here are short on rice. Sell it all to them. Within moments, 50 gene of rice was unloaded smoothly. 15 brand new bucks, plus a few gene of meat coupons, landed in my pocket. I was on cloud 9. Compared to Bai Yulan throwing a tantrum over $9, it was utterly ridiculous. After the deal, Wu Yunfang slung her bag over her shoulder and got ready to go out. I quickly pushed my bike up to her. Sister Yunfang, where are you headed? Let me give you a ride. Wu Yunfang waved her hand repeatedly to refuse. My relative went out of town and left an apartment empty. I'm going to post a notice to see if I can rent it out. I never expected those words to make my eyes light up. I was just worried about where to store those 2,000 gene of eggs. Sister Yunfang, I happen to need a rental to store goods. But Wu Yunfang looked troubled. That place is remote and run down. I can't cheek you, little sister. But what I needed most right now was remote. If you dare to rent it, I dare to take it. So the 2 of us went together to the edge of town. Before us stood 2 connecting 1-story houses. One of them had its gate locked tight. Wu Yunfang pulled out the key, fiddled with it for ages, but the lock wouldn't budge. Seeing this, I just took over. I picked up a rock, and with 2 clangs, smashed the padlock open. Pushing the door open, we saw the place was actually spacious and bright inside. The small yard was neatly arranged, and there were even floral curtains on the windows. Just as I was looking around the house, a half-grown kid suddenly burst out of the doorway. His eyes were bloodshot, staring at us in fury. He suddenly screamed at the top of his lungs. Grandma, a thief broke into our house. That yell hit like a thunderbolt. Wu Yunfang stared at the shattered door and froze on the spot. It suddenly dawned on me. Oh, Daqing, I think we broke into the wrong door. Just then, an old woman rushed over from outside. She looked at the broken lock on the ground, shaking with anger. She came up and grabbed my ear. You little brat. I just replaced that lock, and you smash it open. In broad daylight, not even hiding it. Wu Yunfang quickly pulled out her ID and explained repeatedly. Aunt Sue stared at the name and realized this was old Wu's relative. It turned out there had been a burglary in this area last night, so the old lady had completely misunderstood. I quickly pulled out a buck to apologize, but Aunt Sue refused to take it, and instead became warmly enthusiastic. No harm, no foul. Stay for lunch. I'll make steamed buns. I promptly pedaled to the shop, bought a gene of pig head meat, and 2 bottles of cheap liquor. When the steaming hot buns were set on the table, I smelled the meat and my eyes went wide. This skill was exactly the same as the state-run restaurants. After chatting, I found out that Aunt Sue's husband was actually the head pastry chef at that restaurant, Old Jiang. But Aunt Sue kept sighing because her grandson flatly refused to learn the craft. This extraordinary skill looked like it would be lost forever. After eating our fill, I sealed the rental deal on the spot, $2 a month. Then I headed straight to the hardware store and bought 2 new locks. When no one was around, I pulled out the portal warehouse key and secretly twisted it. The next second, the scene before me changed completely. The whole room was filled with rice and flour, and the grenades were all inside, safe and sound. Now I had no more worries. I turned and headed straight for the town supply and marketing co-op. Unexpectedly, behind the counter, was that same female sales clerk who looked down on me. She swallowed her resentment and directly sliced off a piece of fat meat a full finger thick. In this era starved for oil and grease, this was top-grade goods everyone coveted. But I didn't even spare it a glance. Instead, I pointed at the lean meat and ribs nobody wanted on the chopping board. How much for these? The young salesgirl's face instantly turned green. The little girls beside her burst into laughter, convinced I was just a poor wretch who couldn't even afford fatty meat. I couldn't be bothered to explain future health concepts to them. I pulled out cash and cleared the counter of all lean meat and ribs. Then I spent another $3 on a frenzy of eggs, even turning to grab 4 jeans of peach cookies and milk biscuits. The girls who had been mocking me froze instantly, staring at me as if I were a living money god. When I got back to Wu Daqing, I just caught the commune members finishing their work shift. They saw the 10 jeans of meat hanging from my handlebars, and their eyes nearly popped out. I deliberately raised my voice. The rice the team rewarded, I swapped it for meat. Salt cured. It'll last a long time. Just then, Bai Yulan pushed through the crowd, eyes red, greedily staring as if she wanted to take the whole basin home. She reached out to grab that big piece of meat. This meat. First pay back the 1 yuan you owe me as filial piety. But how could I let her get an ounce of advantage? I blocked those greedy hands. Nah, this is so meat. Just like that hard bean. It'll never cook tender. Careful, you might break your teeth on it. With that, I pedaled off on my bike, leaving Bai Yulan standing there, grinding her back teeth in fury. With that, I pedaled off on my bike, leaving Bai Yulan standing there, grinding her back teeth in fury. Then as soon as I entered the yard, I shoved the pastries into the hands of my 2 younger sisters, then took out the big meat and laid it in the yard. I grabbed handfuls of coarse salt and began rubbing it in thoroughly. Once this surface show was done, from now on, having meat every meal at home would be perfectly covered. Next, I turned around and stoked the fire in the stove to the max. This store-bought meat was just a decoy. Today's ribs, I absolutely had to stew them. The fire in the stove roared, and soon the rich aroma filled the entire yard. Aunt Nyo swallowed hard over the wall, shouting that it was a terrible waste. I poked my head out of the kitchen and snorted coldly. If you cook more, there'll be leftovers. Leaving it for 2 days won't hurt. With that, I ducked back in and stood guard over the big iron pot. Once the ribs were out of the pot, I immediately had Xiao Yuan take 2 bowls, straight to Wu Gang's house, and the sent down youth point. Lu Siming was supposed to deliver it herself, but the east yard had been quiet. Now I was guarding Nguan Bao so closely I wouldn't even let anyone look at her. When Xiao Yuan came back with Nguan Bao, the 3 of us siblings hugged the ribs and started wolfing them down. The feeling of tearing the meat right off the bone was even more satisfying than just eating it. But before the soup in the basin even had a drop left, all hell broke loose over at the east compound. Wu Daqing hollered at the top of his lungs, wanting half the village to hear. Let the whole village, young and old, judge. The younger generation eats meat in big mouthfuls, gives it to outsiders, but won't even give their own grandparents a bite. I let out a cold laugh when I heard that. I pushed open the door and walked out, and came face to face with Aunt Nyo, her eyes gleaming with the thrill of gossip. You smell Bai Yulan's stewed meat every day? So why isn't anyone raising a fuss about that? My Xiao Yuan earned some meat through his merits, and you're raising a ruckus over the first bite. By then, all the neighbors from both streets had caught on. Wu Daqing's face flushed red with anger. He kept shouting that old lady had been upset into sickness, but Aunt Nyo shot back on the spot. I say she's just craving meat. Even the old men out for a stroll joined the jeering, mocking Wu Daqing for being obsessed with a pretty young, educated woman. Just then, Wu Gang pushed through the crowd with a grim face. He bellowed once and scattered the onlookers. Then he turned and fixed his eyes on me. To my surprise, he didn't blow up. Instead, he dropped the cushy job of tending livestock right in my lap. Turned out old Han had been reassigned to guide the archaeology team, so those few extra work points were now up for grabs. I accepted on the spot. After stashing all the rice in the dual realm portal storage, I took Xiao Yuan and Nguan Bao straight to the livestock shed. But as we passed the sent down youth point, a little drama broke out. Nguan Bao insisted on sleeping with Lu Siming. Yao Yuling smiled and tried to carry her away, but Nguan Bao rejected her, saying she smelled of a strange medicine. Afraid that a child's innocent words might cause trouble, I quickly made an excuse about Nguan Bao wetting the bed and tried to pull her away. But Xiao Yuan, with a straight face, ruthlessly ratted me out. Our big brother's the one with the real talent. He could flood the sent-down youth point away. A single stream shoots super high. My face suddenly went dark, seeing the 2 female educated youths' extremely sour expressions. I scooped up the kid and turned to flee. When we reached the livestock pen, old Han gave me 1,000 warnings, then left, looking back every few steps. I led the 2 kids in cutting hay, adding water, and shoveling manure, getting the animals perfectly settled. Then I went to the river to fetch water. The next second, when I came back with the water, I found the livestock shed surrounded by a crowd. Wu Gang was clutching his tobacco pipe, glumly blocking the way. He angrily declared, "This donkey, it's still a newborn foal. Who could have imagined that to curry favor with the archaeology experts from the city, that fat-bellied section chief fan had set his sights on a newborn donkey foal?" He stuck out his shiny bald head and laid down an ultimatum on the spot. "If you don't make donkey meat for me with this little foal, don't even think about watching any movies in the village this year." At that, the whole village, young and old, fell into despair. Then Wu Gang, worried, squatted on the ground sighing. Back in the day, commune members would rather starve than kill livestock, and now someone wanted to eat wild game. At this critical moment, I stepped forward directly and made a bold claim on the spot. I thumped my chest and guaranteed I would entertain the experts properly. And what did I ask for? Sichuan peppercorns, dried chili peppers, and beer. Then I grabbed an iron bucket and headed straight to the river. Little did I expect that what I fished back was a full bucket of crayfish. You see, in the countryside, even dogs wouldn't touch these things. They were only fit as chicken feed, junk. Just then, Big Neo returned from town with a cartload of seasonings. Not only did I start a big pot of hot oil, but I also threw in the spices like they cost nothing. Wu Gang and Accountant Zhu were so anxious they slapped their thighs. They were sure not only was the movie doomed, but that precious pot of cooking oil was ruined too. Yet the very next second, the crayfish hit the sizzling oil with a loud crackle. Suddenly, a soul-stirring, extraordinary aroma shot straight up. It was a supreme freshness that animal fat could never produce. Then, I actually cracked open 2 bottles of beer, took a couple of swigs myself, and poured the rest into the pot. This heavenly move stunned both Wu Gang and Accountant Zhu. But just then, Section Chief Fan, drawn by the smell, suddenly turned hostile. He saw the pot was full of chicken feed trash and started screaming at Accountant Zhu, pointing his finger like crazy. He threatened that if the experts got angry, no one could bear the consequences. He bellowed for the donkey to be slaughtered immediately, but I wasn't about to let him push me around. You were born of your mother, weren't you? Does that mean you have no relation to your father? Section Chief Fan's fingers trembled with rage, but I didn't even spare him a glance. I hoisted the big ladle and kept on stirring furiously. Just at this tense moment, the exhausted archaeology team came back from the mountains. As soon as they returned, that aggressive spicy aroma instantly captivated everyone's soul. Professor Wu Daqing, the leader, saw the big pot of brilliant red crayfish, and his eyes lit up immediately. I quickly fished one out for him to taste. The old professor bit into the tail of the crayfish. In an instant, the ultimate numbing spice and sweetness exploded on his tongue. This peerless delicacy not only completely won over the professor, but also directly awakened a deep homesickness within him. As the crayfish officially came out of the pot, all the archaeology team members went wild. Everyone ate it with white rice, sweating from the spice, but they just couldn't stop their chopsticks. Even Section Chief Fan, who was shouting wildly just a moment ago, picked up his bowl and downed 2 big bowls in a row. When the huge pot of crawfish was completely empty, Professor Goose sighed with satisfaction. I'm a one-of-a-kind genius. Unexpectedly, Section Chief Fan immediately put on a fawning expression. He not only took full responsibility, but even boasted, I'll have the villagers scoop up a few more buckets from the ditch later. Just then, I cut in sharply. Eating dead shrimp from a stinking ditch will kill someone. I sacrificed a whole day's labor, fishing them out of clean water. As soon as I said that, Professor Wu Daqing not only nodded repeatedly, but praised my high level of consciousness. Who would have thought Wu Gang would then strike while the iron was hot, pointing directly at Xiao Yuan playing nearby and dropping a bombshell. It turned out that the one who discovered the ancient tomb and handed over the national treasure was actually my own younger brother, who couldn't even afford school. Hearing this, Wu Daqing immediately perked up. He promptly called Xiao Yuan over and carefully studied this incredibly clever wild child. When he learned that we 2 brothers were orphans and couldn't even get enough to eat, this Professor Gu didn't hesitate at all. He immediately offered to help Xiao Yuan solve the big problem of going to school in town. Never would I have imagined that Xiao Yuan, this kid, was not only tight-lipped, but also an honest person. He held back for a long time, then suddenly dropped to his knees and thumped his head firmly on the ground. Professor Gu, from now on you are my real grandfather. When you pass away, I'll smash the bowl and send you off. These stunning words didn't anger Wu Daqing at all. Instead, they made him throw his head back and laugh. He made a decision on the spot. Without even filing a report, Xiao Yuan's tuition was fully on him. I gritted my teeth silently and etched this immense favor deep in my heart. But in the middle of the night, I lay on the Kong tossing and turning, unable to sleep. So I got up, and in the dark went to the river to set nets and catch shrimp. Sure enough, every cast was a hit. In no time, I filled 4 whole glass fiber bags. Just as I was about to head home, the unexpected struck. Suddenly, a rustling sound came from the woods by the river. Then 2 dark figures sneaked out furtively. By starlight I saw, and broke out in a cold sweat. That fat, bald head was Section Chief Fan, who had been so arrogant during the day. But what shocked me even more was that alluring, swaying figure. It was Yao Yuling, the educated young woman from the sent-down group. In the dead of night, what were a man and a woman doing alone by the river? The next second, I understood everything. I saw Section Chief Fan urgently groping all over her body. They were actually doing it right there in the wilderness. I felt a chill of disgust, and even felt sorry for Uncle Wu, who had been pining after Yao Yuling. But just then, Yao Yuling suddenly pulled out a small bag and tore it open. She coquettishly complained about how miserable the last abortion was, and said she'd finally managed to get this contraceptive thing. Seeing this, my mind went blank, and everything became clear. So I had been completely wrong before. That suggestive blue elf, that Lu Siming had. It was actually the dirty stuff Yao Yuling had gotten him to procure. After a few more thrusts, Section Chief Fan surrendered. But the 2 of them, still naked, refused to leave. Instead, they huddled together whispering. When Yao Yuling eagerly pressed about the quota to return to the city, Section Chief Fan suddenly mentioned a name. Lu Siming has something. You must get that thing in your hands. Otherwise, forget about returning to the city. Hearing this, my heart leaped into my throat. I couldn't listen to any more of this sordid business. I grabbed a stone and hurled it hard into the woods. A few crows flapped up in alarm, scaring Yao Yuling into a piercing scream. Taking advantage of the commotion, I slipped back into the darkness. But inside, I was churning with turmoil. What? Did they want to snatch from Lu Siming? Even knowing someone was going to move against Lu Siming, I decided to stay out of it and watch. But I never expected. Right after I tossed the crawfish into my pocket space, The next moment, I ran into this woman, sneaking out of her own room. We came face to face. I'm looking for someone. My eyes instantly turned cold. In the middle of the night, a man and a woman sneaking into someone else's house. They definitely have other motives. You need to be careful of that Wu Daqing. He definitely has bad intentions. I frowned deeply. A great professor on a field survey. For no reason. Sponsoring a dirt-poor rural orphan? Could there really be some hidden agenda? Before I could ask more, Lu Siming rolled up his sleeves and tried to slip away. At that critical moment, I grabbed his arm and held fast. Lu Siming was shocked and furious, struggling violently. He suddenly whipped out a sharp knife from his belt. The blade came straight at me, but having trained in the militia, I wasn't about to be impressed by such a cheap trick. I twisted his wrist, and in an instant disarmed him. Then I threw the knife hard at Lu Siming's feet. I treated you out of kindness, but it's like feeding a dog. Lu Siming trembled with rage, picked up the knife, and without looking back, rushed into the night. The moment he left, I suddenly crouched down and started feeling around in the mud. Then, my fingertips touched something cold and hard. By the moonlight, I saw it. I gasped. Lying in the mud was a white jade guanine pendant of the finest quality. This thing was priceless. Definitely not something an ordinary female-educated youth could own. Suddenly, space. The words of that pair of wild lovers in the woods flashed through my mind. Could it be that Section Chief Fan and Yao Yulin had stooped to any means to get their hands on this jade? To be safe, I decisively tossed the pendant, along with my own piece, into the storage space. Early the next morning, I quickly went to the river to pull up the net. With a splash of water, half a bucket of lively Crucian carp and minnows burst out of the water, at least 30 to 40 catties, and even mixed in with a few fat three-striped catfish. Just as I was calculating how to use this good catch to entertain the archaeological team, Brigade Leader Wu Gang hurried over to meet me. The first thing he said was a piece of absurd news. Last night, Yao Yulin and Lu Siming didn't come home. They both claimed they went to bathe in the big river. Dying, you set nets last night, did you see them? Cold sweat trickled down my back. If I told the truth, I'd offend both sides and land myself in trouble for hooliganism. So I resolutely shook my head and played dumb. I brushed the whole thing off. Wu Gang breathed a sigh of relief. Then he told me to take the letter of introduction and go to town to buy spices. Next, Accountant Zhu not only issued the letter promptly, but also pressed a big wad of cash and cloth coupons into my hand. This money is from your uncle Wu Gang and me. Xiao Yuan's going to school in town. He needs to buy some decent clothes. Looking at the thick stack of notes in my hand, my heart swelled with warmth. I made a silent vow. Today, when I sell the fish in town, I will make sure my younger siblings have a good life. At last, I could buy new clothes for my brother and sister. Then I made an excuse and slipped back to the backyard, turned around, and stepped through the door of 2024. Looking at the brand new electric scooter awarded by the system, I couldn't wait to insert the key. Wind whistled past my ears, 100 times better than that broken tractor. But just as I was feeling proud, a police motorcycle suddenly cut across my path. He blocked me dead at the intersection. The guy was over 6 feet tall, his face frighteningly dark. He coldly handed me a hard hat and reached out to confiscate my ID. I was dumbfounded. I patted myself all over and only pulled out a crumpled letter of introduction, but he didn't even glance at it. Just as I thought I was doomed today, I never expected that this traffic cop would not only tear up a 20 yuan ticket, but even give me the hard hat for free. Before I could react, his gaze suddenly locked onto the lively little things in my bucket. Next second, he pulled out a whopping 300 yuan, shoved it into my arms, grabbed the bucket, jumped on his motorcycle, and sped off. I was completely stunned. Less than 3 caddies of river fish sold for 300 yuan, a sky-high price. Do modern cops really treat money like dirt? Brimming with confusion, I rode straight to Zhang Ximei's house at Longhu Chunxiao. When the Zhang family heard about my strange fortune of 300 yuan, their expressions all turned priceless. Li Yueyu exaggeratedly winked and grimaced, leaning in to say, "That guy has to be my good-for-nothing older brother." Zhang Ximei was even more furious. Right then and there, she spilled all the dirt on that grandson. "That's definitely my good-for-nothing brother." It turned out the guy loafed around every day, and while he was on the public security team, someone even reported him for molesting male students. I listened, utterly speechless. If I actually ran into him, I wouldn't know where to hide my face. Just as I was about to ask the Zhangs for help, finding Xiao Yuan and Wan Bao, a violent smashing sound suddenly came from downstairs. Then, a crude curse pierced through the window. Someone was kicking my brand new electric scooter wildly. I furrowed my brow and was about to go downstairs, when Zhang Ximei blocked me with a dark face and said coldly, "That's my own useless brat downstairs." But the moment the door was shoved open, the air inside froze solid. A young man in a peaked cap strode in, still holding that all-too-familiar fish bucket. Liu looked up, his sharp eyes immediately locking onto me on the sofa. We stared at each other, both frozen on the spot. If my identity was exposed now, they'd really take me for an enemy agent. Liu slapped his hat hard against his stomach, tapping the brim with his fingers till it popped. He stared at me intently, a cold smile curling at the corner of his mouth. "Gotta say, your outfit and face really fool people. Getting 300 yuan out of me, and a hard hat. You're definitely the first." Liu's brow bones were hard as rock, his shoulders broad as a mountain, and his whole demeanor reeked of unruly grit. In the animal kingdom, he'd be a top predator. Then, without warning, he sat down right next to me, and the first thing he asked for was some wild snakes. I could only force a dry laugh and bluff, saying I only managed to catch wild ginseng. Zhang Weiming was so angry his teeth itched, and he snapped at his grandson. "Stop messing with our guest." But Liu didn't care at all. He even squinted sideways and asked to add me on WeChat privately, and declared he'd come home with me. My mouth twitched wildly. I forced a smile uglier than crying. Then Liu turned and went into the bedroom. And next thing, he pulled out some brand new clothes, tags still on, and shoved them into my arms. Seeing a few glaring pink pieces, I waved my hands repeatedly, making excuses about being too poor in the village to wear them out. But Liu just tossed the clothes onto the sofa, stretched lazily, and accidentally revealed a bit of pink underwear waistband. My pupils shook violently. Liu raised an eyebrow lightly and asked if I liked them too. Even generously offered to give me another pair. Liu stamped her foot anxiously, exclaiming that one pair of underwear cost over 3,000 yuan. But Liu slapped his sister on the back of the head, insisting they were gray. The Zhangs all covered their faces. No one knew that this little devil was actually colorblind and couldn't tell pink from gray. Just then, Liu's gaze suddenly fixed on the white jade pendant in my hand. He asked casually, "Is this thing in your village?" "Just everywhere." Next second, his eyes went straight to the broken fish bucket. My hair stood on end. I stammered, desperately covering with the poverty excuse. "Is this thing common as dirt in your village?" At the critical moment, the doorbell suddenly rang, breaking the suffocating standoff. Shen Qingli came in arm with Shen Guosheng, and then a heavy $1,000,000 in cash, over 20 caddies, was dumped into my arms. Staring at this windfall, I hadn't even recovered from the shock when Shen Guosheng's hands, holding the jade pendant, began trembling uncontrollably. The old man's tears streamed down, and he revealed a shocking secret. Back then, my master made 2 jade pendants. He gave the one with better quality to his 8-year-old biological daughter as a keepsake. Who would have thought? After the turmoil settled, the daughter who came back was a cunning imposter. That fake rich girl not only swindled all the family assets, but even reported her foster father and ran off with the jade pendant, disappearing without a trace. My heart skipped a violent beat. In my mind, Lu Ximing's harmless face instantly appeared. She was clearly wearing the same jade pendant, but she kept saying her father studied plants and animals, so that scheming imposter was her. I suppressed my shock, and after the Shin family left, I quickly took my leave. I made excuses to decline Zhang Xinmei's offer to stay, just wanting to get out with the $1,000,000 ASAP. But Li Yueyu stared at the eye-catching money box, exclaiming it was too unsafe. Just then, Li Yu put on his peaked cap, slowly pushed up his sunglasses, and actually offered to escort me personally. My jaw nearly hit the floor, but facing this jinx, I couldn't even force out a single no. After barely making it downstairs, Li Yu stared at the brand new electric scooter, frowning deeply. This junk doesn't even have a license plate. I cursed the system under my breath for being useless, and had no choice but to turn to the only traffic cop connection I had for help. But the next second, Li Yu flipped open his motorcycle trunk, pulled out a fake plate he'd confiscated this morning, and slapped it onto the scooter in no time. Such blatant lawbreaking stunned me completely. Could this guy actually be into me? I plucked up my courage and tentatively asked Li Yu, "With your looks and job, how come you don't have a girlfriend?" Li Yu turned around, and with a sly smile dropped a bombshell. He said he only liked men. I felt like a thunderbolt exploded in my head, the blood in my veins turning cold. Seeing my ghost-like expression, Li Yu burst out laughing. He explained that it was just an excuse to fend off his family's matchmaking. I finally let out a long sigh of relief, about to agree that women were great. But Li Yu's next words kicked me back into the ice. Li Yu stroked his chin, looking me up and down, and said languidly, "If my family pressures me again, I'll just say you and I got together." I turned to stone on the spot. Then Li Yu suddenly leaned in, staring straight into my eyes. "Wu Daqing, how old are you?" Li Yu's piercing gaze was like a physical force, and he even started suspecting the younger siblings I had with me. A child born from early marriage and early childbirth. Faced with this absurd speculation, I could only grit my teeth and reveal the bloody family shame. My biological mother abandoned me right after giving birth. My stepmother died in a car accident, and my grandmother saw us siblings as burdens. She abused us mercilessly. Such a desperate confession instantly shattered Li Yu's defenses. In his arrogant eyes, a rare flicker of sympathy appeared. Then, Li Yu mentioned the $1,000,000 in cash that could bring trouble, and said outright he'd take me to open a bank account. But I spread my hands. I couldn't even produce an ID card. In this modern society, without an ID, you can't go anywhere. Just then, Li Yu curled a sly smile. He declared he knew an absolutely safe place, guaranteed to serve as a warehouse. But the moment he got on his motorcycle, he realized he forgot the keys, so he had to go back. And in that brief gap, a richly dressed woman swayed over and pressed against me, speaking sweetly, begging me to fix her water pipe at home. And I, this naive country lad, actually agreed on the spot. At the critical moment, Li Yu strode back and put his arm around my shoulder, naturally draping it over me. He tossed a sorry at the rich woman. "She's mine." Watching the rich woman walk away in disappointment, I was still completely confused. Li Yu looked at me with scorn. He said I couldn't even recognize a rich woman's marriage proposal routine. I almost coughed up blood. I cursed silently. Women in the future are too shameless. Then I chased on my broken e-bike through the exhaust fumes, the wheels nearly smoking. When I arrived and looked, it was actually the night market street where I'd time traveled. A 10-minute trip. Took half an hour. Li Yu brazenly said it was to take the scenic route he knew. I suppressed my rage and followed him through the door. The next second, a bone-chilling wind hit my scalp. In glass tanks all over the room, countless live snakes coiled. An arm-thick python flicked its red forked tongue, staring at me. Before I could react, Li Yu pulled out a lively mouse and tossed it into the tank. It was swallowed instantly by the python. I swallowed hard. I worried the noise would disturb others. But Li Yu just rolled his eyes, pointed to the reinforced room next door, and said, "That's the warehouse." Seeing the perfect layout next door, I asked about the rent, satisfied. But Liu was silent for a while, slowly squinting his eyes, and said in a low voice, "No money. Just your person." I stepped back in fear, frantically clutching my clothes. I roared, "I won't sell myself. Just bring me 50 live mice every week. I'll let you off." I said mice are too dirty and casually suggested swapping to 50 sparrows. Little did I expect. Liu coldly delivered a deadly warning. Sparrows are a national third-level protected species. Catch them, and you'll go straight inside to stomp. 3 years of sewing machine. I felt my understanding completely overturned. In my era, they were targets for the Four Pest campaign. Seeing no way out, I had to steel myself and promise. I won't let the big babies go hungry. Once the room was completely cleaned, Liu sprawled against the doorframe and demanded a treat. I glanced at the countdown and winked at him mysteriously. Only then did I realize my slip of the tongue, so I simply slipped into the bathroom. Then, the two of us sat at the bun shop outside the supermarket and ate like crazy, watching me swallow bun after bun. Liu, initially disgusted, felt his throat tighten, but I forced one into his hand. He took a small bite and instantly found it delicious. Two grown men, without a word of nonsense, managed to finish one tea, a full 120 big buns. By the end, they were stuffed and hiccuping. Jiang Haohao, stunned on the side, immediately handed over sweet soy milk. I asked carefully, and found out it was old Zhang's ancestral recipe. I suddenly realized, this was exactly the same as in my era. The branch of the state-run canteen run by Aunt Sue's husband. After a quick goodbye, Liu couldn't help teasing that Jiang Haohao had a crush on me, but my heart was full of bitterness. I don't even have an ID card, so I didn't dare take that bait. Just then, the system alert suddenly sounded, and directly threw out 3 absurd options. First, slap Liu for 1 million. Second, admit I like men, to get a temporary ID. Third, ask Liu to buy a phone in exchange for a rat hole map. I stared at Liu's muscular build, and decisively abandoned the suicidal option 1. But option 2 was even more absurd. This guy's orientation is already unclear. I can't risk my innocence. Just as I was about to give up for dignity's sake, the system directly issued an elimination warning. If I don't make a choice, I'll not only lose money and get beaten, all the hard-earned grain and money will be ruined by rats. At the critical moment, Liu patted his belly and prepared to leave. I turned pale with fear and grabbed him tightly. Then Liu was dragged into the supermarket, dazed. He became free labor. I frantically swept dried chili and Sichuan pepper off the shelves. Liu followed, pushing the cart. The more he thought, the more he felt like a sucker. The two finally made it to the phone counter at the supermarket entrance. I finally steeled myself to speak and actually asked Liu to buy me a phone. Liu laughed in anger and said outright that I, a millionaire sitting on cash, why should I freeload? But I, without a blush, fabricated a tearjerker story about my dying grandmother wanting to see me use a phone. Liu's face turned green, and he wasn't buying it. Unexpectedly, I had a brainwave and suddenly threw out the ultimate bait. I promised to deliver 50 pure wild mice in a week. This move hit the sweet spot instantly. Then Liu grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and pressed me hard against the glass counter, grinding his teeth, telling me to pick a model. Feeling the terrifying pressure from above, I knew nothing about electronics, so I just pointed at Liu and yelled for the same model. Liu's heart bled instantly. That phone cost him 22,000, a limited edition Porsche model. Who would have thought? The saleswoman next to him had even more shocking words. She glanced at Liu with contempt and directly pulled out the latest foldable screen, announcing the shocking price of 25,200. Hearing the 25,200 price tag, I immediately felt guilty and tentatively asked if there was a cheap one for a few hundred. Liu was so angry he almost spat blood. We've already spent the big money. I'm not short on this little bit. But once I got the new phone, I didn't even smile. Instead, I pushed further. I lowered my voice and begged Liu to use his ID to get me a SIM card on the pretext of adding him on WeChat. Liu laughed in exasperation and directly took out his ID, getting me a 188 yuan plan. Not only that, he secretly planned, later, to check this kid's call log. Then a few young sales clerks, enthusiastic as fire, surrounded me and taught me how to use the phone. Liu sat nearby, bored, and grabbed leftover buns from the bag to chew dry. Unexpectedly, I rushed over excitedly to show off calling and directly dialed a number. Is that Sister Lin? This number is my phone. Hearing that sweet call, Liu's face darkened so much it could have rolled into a beaded curtain. He scratched irritably at the glass counter, scratching the little ads into several fine lines. After hanging up, I gave a light thanks and turned to leave. Liu wouldn't let it go. He reached out and demanded material thanks. But I was broke, and the system's reward map hadn't arrived yet, so I just shoved the leftover buns, 2 bags worth, into his hands. Liu stared at the half-eaten buns, then gloomily gulped one down. Soon Liu was back at the traffic police brigade carrying the buns. When his colleagues saw it was old Zhang's big buns, they instantly went wild and tried to grab them. But Liu waved a hand, guarding the buns with his life, preferring to treat them to a big dinner out of his own pocket that night. Right after he boasted, he pulled out his phone and wanted to delete himself. He never expected that he'd forgotten to save my number. Meanwhile, I was ordering a full 2,000 gene of eggs with that sister Ling. While waiting for the delivery, I immediately started fiddling with the system's reward map. Taking advantage of Liu's absence, I used 2 door keys to open the warehouse and quickly moved the bed, cabinet, and phone boxes into the other space. Half an hour later, everything was set. Only the plumbing pipes remained an obvious flaw. Just as I was figuring out how to cover it up, Liu came roaring back on his motorcycle. As soon as he walked in, he headed straight for the bathroom. Frightened, I blocked the door tightly. Blocked him. Liu was stunned, insisting on seeing for himself. I ground my teeth in panic, terrified that the secret of two worlds would be exposed on the spot. At the critical moment, the egg delivery truck finally arrived. Seeing those baskets of 2,000 gene of eggs, Liu even forgot his urge to pee. It suddenly dawned on him, and he threw his arm around my shoulder. Brother, I was being petty. It turned out Liu had always felt that I had a kind of fake sincerity that didn't belong to this era. But seeing that I was only hustling eggs to earn some hard money, he completely let down his guard. Guilt-ridden, I quickly packed a box of crawfish for him to take back for his colleagues. Liu laughed and totally forgot about the frustration of buying the phone. Then I finished up with the haul and deliveries, dragged my tired body back to the 80s shed, and hit the sack. When I woke up, Wu Daqing and accountant Zhu had already stewed the fish for me. Where did you get the money to buy so many big buns from the state-owned restaurant? Facing the interrogation, I had a brainwave. I claimed that I had stumbled upon a mysterious old chief, and that the buns were a thank you gift from him. I also said he insisted on keeping his identity secret. When the two old revolutionaries heard that, they exchanged a glance. If the old chief says don't tell, then it's classified. They quickly hid the big buns, afraid that loose lips would leak state secrets. Seeing the two elders so cautious, I felt a warmth in my heart. I turned and glanced at the clock on the wall, calculating that the archaeology team should be back soon. I quickly called Xiao Yuan to gather firewood and start a fire to heat up some soup. Let's eat before the archaeology team gets back. I called out to Xiao Yuan and Wan Bao, but the two kids kept shaking their heads, refusing to take the first bite. I patiently explained that good food wouldn't keep, and besides, I was grateful to the two elders for their care, so this small gesture was only right. But Wu Daqing and accountant Zhu still insisted on taking only one each. To taste the buns, they were indeed delicious. But as village cadres, with rumors swirling, they had to avoid suspicion. Seeing that, I had Xiao Yuan pack the buns into a basket and sent 20 to each of their homes. Not only that, I also took the opportunity to give accountant Zhu a messy account. I said the supply receipt got lost when I was saving someone. Though no extra money was spent, the books were all a mess. Accountant Zhu couldn't be bothered to fuss, so he let it go. Before leaving, Wu Daqing smiled and told me to watch the fish stew pot. I knew in my heart that this goodwill had been fully accepted by the two elders. While the archaeology team was still gone, I quickly called the two little ones to eat. Time was tight, so us three siblings just gnawed on cold buns. Luckily, my timing was just right. I picked out the two fattiest pieces from the belly and dropped them into Xiao Yuan's and Wan Bao's bowls. The two kids tasted fish for the first time in ages, grinning from ear to ear. But as dusk fell, evening arrived, and the archaeology team still hadn't shown up. Deep in the mountains, wild beasts come out at night, and the tomb site was very deep. If something happened, it would be no joke. Wu Daqing paced anxiously in the shed, his pipe glowing on and off. Section chief Fan, responsible for reception, was drenched in sweat. Impatiently, he threw out harsh words. If anything happens to the archaeology team, you'll be in serious trouble. Section chief Fan stormed off to the brigade office to call in a report, leaving Wu Daqing frowning deeply. Just then, I came in carrying 2 buckets of water. I had been trained as a militia and learned marksmanship from third uncle. Hearing that something was wrong, I immediately volunteered to take a gun and go into the mountains to look for them. But Wu Daqing flatly refused. No, we must go as a group. Have you forgotten what happened to your third uncle in those mountains? My third uncle Wu Zhongjuan was a veteran and a sharpshooter. He went into the mountains 5 years ago and vanished. Even the villagers who went looking for him never returned. Ever since then, no one dared go into the mountains lightly. I knew going alone wouldn't work, so I quickly prepared the gear. Flashlight, coat, fire-starting tools, plus a machete for self-defense. But that wasn't enough. Going into the mountains without a gun was suicide. I ran to the brigade office and begged Wu Daqing. First I patted my chest and swore I was a crack shot. Then I got emotional, saying that the meat I brought back last time gave the 2 kids diarrhea because they hadn't had water in so long. They ate it and got the runs. Wu Daqing's heart softened, and he finally relented. He went into the back room, and after a moment, handed me a well-maintained old hunting rifle. I handled it expertly for a few moments, and Wu Daqing finally felt at ease. At that time, Militia Captain Zhang Lianwen had already gathered the Commune members. Wu Daqing gave the order, and the crowd surged into the deep mountains. The deeper they went, the thicker the eerie fog became. In the drought-stricken early spring, this fog seemed highly unusual. Just as they were about to enter the dense forest, I suddenly noticed a small knife lying on the path. I recognized it at once. That was definitely the knife of female-educated youth Lu Siming. Had she sneaked into the mountains? I suppressed my suspicion, shining the flashlight to search carefully, but found no women's footprints. Along the way, the group searched along the only path into the mountains, but didn't see even a trace of the archaeology team. Finally, in a grove of ancient trees, they found the looted ancient stone slab. The tomb roof was opened, marked blueprints and shovels scattered everywhere, but not a single person in sight. Zhang Lianwen shouted into the looters' tunnel a few times. The silence in the ancient tomb made your scalp crawl. Brigade leader, maybe we should go down and take a look. Wu Daqing took a drag from his cigarette, his pipe fixed on that pitch-black opening. Wu Daqing took a deep puff from his pipe, anxiety written all over his face. He wanted to lead everyone down immediately to check, but reason pulled him back to reality. This was a Tang Dynasty hidden tomb, extremely high archaeological value. If he barged in with a bunch of roughnecks, the damage would be irreversible. Take a 3-minute break. Zhang Lianwen, take some men and scout the perimeter. But before he finished speaking, a massive dark shape suddenly rose from the woods. That shadow staggered to its feet, over 2 meters tall, a ring of white fur around its neck, like a giant in a fur coat. Zhang Lianwen raised his gun sharply. Wu Gang pressed down the barrel. Cold sweat soaked through his back. I squinted for a closer look and gasped. It wasn't a person at all. That was a full-grown black bear. All the commune members' legs went weak with fear. Just at that critical moment, from the deep looter's tunnel, a very old voice suddenly rang out. Brigade leader, that bear's been blocking us all day. We're all inside. Then, old Han, Wu Daqing, and the rest of the archaeology team cautiously poked their heads out. They were all gaunt and starving. Their rations completely gone without a crumb left. Seeing this, a few commune members quickly handed over their water flasks and food to ease their hunger. But the biggest threat was right in front of them. That 2-meter-tall black bear was still blocking the woods. Not only did it not leave, but it also showed no sign of attacking. This beast couldn't even be caught by hunters' traps. In the forest, a strange story my third uncle once told suddenly flashed through my mind. Could it be the bear begging for meat? I quickly turned and asked if anyone had dried meat on them, but Wu Gang just scolded me irritably. The brigade is dead broke. We don't have a scrap of meat. Stay out of it. I have some. Before everyone could react, I secretly activated the smart map from the system. In an instant, every rat hole within 100 miles was visible. Then I grabbed the military shovel, jumped straight down to the edge of the ancient tomb, and started digging wildly. Wu Daqing shouted in panic, afraid I would damage the buried treasures. But I was quick and nimble, and yanked out 2 of the fattest rats from the dirt, wrapping them tightly in my clothes. I grinned coldly, grabbed the rats by the tails, swung my arm hard, and hurled them straight at the black bear. The rats hit the ground, their brains splattering on impact. The smell of blood spread, and that nearsighted black bear actually bent down, gulped them down in a few bites, skin and all. After eating, it stood there staring blankly, just like a person, not moving an inch. It wasn't full, it wanted more. Wu Daqing was the first to catch on. He immediately called the team to search for more rat holes. Now the whole archaeology team erupted. One nest after another of rats were dug out, and like throwing grenades, I hurled them furiously at the black bear. After it devoured who knows how many rats, the massive beast finally moved. It slowly raised both paws, and earnestly cupped them together toward the crowd, exactly like a person bowing. After that spine-chilling gesture, it turned and lumbered slowly into the dense forest. That black bear had really become a spirit. That was definitely a bear king with a human soul. To prevent further misfortune, Wu Daqing ordered overnight that all excavated artifacts be catalogued and moved. The operation was enormous. They worked all the way until daybreak. The commune members, having gone without food all night, were so hungry they saw stars. I was dying to pee. Just as I was about to slip into the woods, Wu Gang tossed me his old hunting rifle. Take the gun. He followed right behind me, muttering that he couldn't hold it either. After relieving ourselves, I felt refreshed. I caught sight of an unfamiliar ridge ahead. I couldn't help pointing and asking, "What's that?" Wild Boar Ridge. At the same time, Wu Daqing, who had come along to pee, had a glint in his eyes. That man was always bold as brass. He directly suggested, while the archaeology team was busy, we go to Wild Boar Ridge and bag some big game to feast on. Let's hit Wild Boar Ridge and get some big game for a proper meal. Wu Gang's face turned grim. He refused sternly. You see, wild boars were the true kings of the forest. One charge from them could rip your belly wide open. In these deep mountains, even that spirit-like black bear from last night only dared to mark its territory with urine at the border of the Boar Woods, never daring to cross. But Wu Daqing was a stubborn mule. He kept staring at Wild Boar Ridge, itching to go. I held the cold hunting rifle in my hands, and a fire started burning in my chest too. Going alone wouldn't be safe. But if I didn't take the chance to bag some big game, when would the wild game hidden at home ever see the light of day? Thinking this, I deliberately slowed down, sidled up to Wu Daqing, and in a low voice dangled the temptation of meat. Wu Daqing rolled his eyes, his face saying he dreamed of it. Then, with a gleam in my eye, I laid out a scheme. I urged Wu Daqing to go ahead first. I would then con the brigade leader into taking the men to find him. But Wu Daqing wasn't naive either. He immediately asked why he should be the one to take the risk first. I instantly put on a cowardly act, waving my hands in fake surrender. I boasted about my smooth tongue, saying the brigade leader would surely listen to me. That flattery hit the mark perfectly. Wu Daqing tossed out a line, turned, and vanished into the woods like a mudfish. I have 2 little mouths waiting at home to be fed. But before I could even speak up, a sharp-eyed commune member suddenly screamed. Wu Daqing, gun and all, had disappeared without a trace. Upon hearing he was missing, Wu Gang paced anxiously on the spot. Wild Boar Ridge was no joke. Adult wild boars were huge, extremely aggressive. On top of that, it was breeding season, making them even more ferocious. He might end up dead. Just then, I seized the moment and volunteered. Wu Gang frowned. Though he had doubts, saving someone was the priority. He quickly left a few to protect the archaeology team, and with Zhang Lianwen and the others, plunged deep into the woods. But the old forest was dense with undergrowth. After hiking for a full 2 hours, they even lost the footprints. Just as I was starting to panic inside, a rapid series of grunts suddenly came from deep in the woods, followed by a gunshot that tore through the air. Everyone rushed forward with bloodshot eyes. But the scene before them was both funny and frustrating. Wu Daqing was staring wide-eyed at a little brown wild boar that had just left its den. He had its legs tied up tight with rope, and he even proudly reported to Wu Gang, brigade leader. Look, but Wu Gang's face was ashen. He shouted angrily, let it go right now. It's the rule of the mountains. Don't hunt the young. Zhang Lianwen chimed in too. Wu Daqing, however reluctant, had to grit his teeth and untie the piglet. But since there's a little pig, Disaster must be lurking nearby. No one intended to turn back. One by one, they leaned against tree trunks and raised their hunting rifles. I climbed an old apricot tree like a nimble monkey, leisurely nibbling on fallen apricots. I scanned the surroundings from above. Suddenly, the grass in the distance shook violently. Something's coming. The next moment, from the woods, two massive black shadows burst out like iron towers. A boar with tusks pointing skyward, and a sow of terrifying size, followed by a litter of piglets, including the one we had just released. They brought the whole family for revenge. The boar, easily 400 gene, let out a furious roar. Wu Daqing, scared witless, fired first, but his hands shook so badly, the bullet only grazed the skin. Instead, it enraged the two mountain kings completely. With deafening squeals, the two wild boars charged the crowd, like heavy tanks. In panic, everyone fired several shots, but it was useless. I sat steady on a branch, slowly raised my rifle, and locked onto the tusked boar. Third uncle's shooting lessons couldn't be disgraced. I had to kill it in one shot. Just as the boar lifted its head and locked eyes with me, blazing with rage, a crisp gunshot rang out. The bullet, perfectly aimed, went straight through the boar's eye into its brain. The boar thrashed in agony on the spot, blood splattering everywhere. In its frenzy, it suddenly turned and charged straight at Wu Daqing. Wu Daqing was terrified out of his wits. He fired wildly and missed again. At the critical moment, I calmly aimed and decisively fired a follow-up shot. The bullet shattered the brainstem. The raging boar finally convulsed and collapsed before anyone could catch their breath. The sow, bereaved of her mate, went completely mad. Eyes bloodshot, she charged straight at my apricot tree and rammed it. The terrifying impact shook apricots down like rain. I clung to the trunk for dear life, my hair standing on end with fear. I felt like I was about to be thrown off. At that life and death moment, Wu Daqing raised his old rifle, aimed at the sow, and pulled the trigger without hesitation. The bullet slammed into the sow's brainstem. Then, Zhang Lianwen's homemade shotgun let out a terrifying roar. It blew open the sow's head. Half the head exploded instantly. She didn't even let out a scream before dropping dead. The piglets, scattered in terror. Only then did I, trembling, slide down the tree. I sidled up to the still-shaken Wu Daqing and whispered. I traded his silence for saving his life. Wu Daqing thumped his chest and swore, "My life is yours. You saved my life. I'll keep my mouth shut." The two giant boars weighed about 800 gene in total. The commune members cheered and shouted. They prepared to carry them down the mountain. But Wu Daqing, examining the carcasses, suddenly went pale. On the head of the sow that had rammed the tree, there were clearly 3 bullet holes. That extra bullet had combined with Zhang Lianwen's blast for a double hit, blowing half the sow's head off. Wu Daqing broke out in a cold sweat. The scene had been chaotic, but he and Zhang Lianwen were highly alert. No one could have hidden within 30 to 50 meters. The person who fired that mysterious third shot must have been at least 50 meters away. In this pitch-black, dense forest, which top-tier, invisible sharpshooter was lurking in the shadows, watching them? This was peacetime, deep in the mountains. Suddenly, a ghost with godly marksmanship, hiding its face, would make anyone's skin crawl. Wu Daqing's brow furrowed into a tight knot. He lowered his voice decisively, ordering everyone to bury this strange incident deep in their hearts. Then the group cut down trees to make carrying poles and trudged back with their spoils. They reached the archaeology team that had been waiting anxiously. Seeing the sight, everyone collectively gasped. 2 massive beasts, each over 400 gene, thudded to the ground. What really made their jaws drop was that the most fearsome boar of the two had been shot dead by me alone. Facing everyone's burning stares, I just scratched my head, dismissing it lightly as luck, and never mentioned the hidden sharpshooter. Then, everyone cheerfully carried the boars to the village entrance. At the big rock by the village entrance, Accountant Zhu was squatting on the ground, puffing hard on his pipe. The sun was already setting, and still no sign of them. He was so anxious he nearly rang the gong, frantically calling the whole village to search the mountain. Just then, someone shouted, "Brigade leader, they're back." All the commune members looked up at once. They saw the procession emerging from the mountain path, but what sent chills down their spines was that they were struggling to carry 2 huge black shapes. Accountant Zhu's face turned white as a sheet. He slapped his thigh and wailed, "Oh no, someone must have died." The whole village instantly went into panic, rushing madly toward the entrance. But when they reached them and stared at the objects being carried, everyone was dumbfounded. Those weren't people at all. They were 2 wild boars as big as hills. The whole Wajiagu exploded like a firecracker. The commune members' eyes gleamed with greed. They circled the boars, swallowing hard. They kept asking, which deity subdued such fierce beasts? Wu Daqing finally dropped his cold expression. He stepped onto a stool and announced loud and clear to the whole village the major meat distribution plan. The credit for this boar goes to Comrade Wu Daqing. Without him, none of us would have made it back today. As soon as he finished, Wu Daqing immediately set the rule, regardless of age. Each person gets 1 gene of meat. Those who went up the mountain get 2 gene each. The commune canteen will stew 50 gene tonight. The rest, the head and all the offal, go to Wu Daqing. Anyone who thinks the share is too small can buy directly from him. 50 cents per gene. If you have no money, trade work points. No credit allowed. Wajiagu had only a little over 50 households. They were getting free fatty meat. Who would dare complain? For a while, the commune canteen was livelier than New Year's. The butcher's knife fell. Hot blood gushed. The women boiled water and chopped firewood, busy as bees.